point from up here really gives you an idea of the scope of the devastation. Ordinarily, this view would be obscured by houses. You would not be able to see so far, but right now we're seeing multiple homes on fire. We also know that there are some businesses. The Bunny Museum is there in the distance, but there's so many flames and so many outlines here of buildings, or at least what's left of them, that I can't tell how many homes here were destroyed. But you got to just think about how many families have been impacted and how this neighborhood has been changed forever. Some people will come back and rebuild, we know. Others, though, will opt not to or won't be able to and will end up living elsewhere. So the fabric of this community has changed after the Eaton Fire. And all day long, we've been driving up Lake Avenue and in the surrounding areas, and every street that we turned onto, we saw devastation. Or occasionally there would be a few homes that were not touched by the fire, but even though some of those homeowners say that they couldn't enjoy a sense of relief because of the losses that their neighbors had sustained, or the fear that even though they had survived yesterday and today, their home might not be standing tomorrow because of what you see here. There's still a lot of active flame here in Altadena, and of course, as long as these buildings or what's left of them are burning, there's always the potential that an ember might spark another fire and ignite another home on fire. And sadly, this is a reality tonight. I can say, though, we're not seeing any wind, which I'm sure is a huge relief to the people around here. And the temperatures have also dropped, so both of those things will help firefighters in their fight. That's the latest from Altadena. I'm Christy Fajardo. Let's send it back to you.
All right, Christy, so glad to hear that you're not seeing or feeling the winds like you were yesterday. That is great news. That's the Eaton Fire. Let's go back to the Sunset Fire in the Hollywood Hills. Gina Silva, she's on the ground. You're talking to folks there who have been stuck in that traffic gridlock down below.
Yeah, we're actually now in the neighborhood, and you can see right here, this is the entrance to Runyon Canyon from the neighborhood. We're on Vista Way, the 1800 block of Vista Way. Firefighters are inside there. We've got this gentleman. What's your name?
You can call me Mr. K.
Mr. K. Now, you know, they always say, find the helpers, and this young man was out there helping several of his neighbors. Describe what you were doing.
Well, just helping people evacuate, and also there was a tree that caught on fire just over here, and we had to come together as a community and just get our garden hoses together and just like put it out. We were doing that for the past hour, and now I'm just like going around the neighborhood seeing who else needs help.
And you live right here?
Yeah, just over here, right down the street.
Describe when it was, I mean, just a few seconds ago, we saw the orange glow, and it was looking really scary. The embers were flying everywhere, but then the chopper came by and dropped the water, and it looks so much better right now.
Yeah. So, like, over here, luckily, the fire department is able to make quick work of it, which super thankful to the LAFD, and yeah, it's really a crazy night. Just a lot of crazy outcomes tonight.
Yeah, I did see the fear in your eyes when we were walking up here because it was looking bad.
Yeah. It was
still a threat to many in this neighborhood. That's why the evacuation orders, they're mandatory.
Yeah, exactly. So like, yeah, so basically what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the night right now is just making sure that people can help get out. I think as far as this block is concerned, the fire department has got it under control. So now I'm just going to go throughout the rest of the neighborhood and see who else needs help.
Yeah, well, you're doing a great job. We saw you in action. It's very nice. Good work. Thank you. And hopefully your home will stay untouched. You know?
Most definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm going to get back to it. Have a blessed night.
You too. Yeah, he was helping one of his neighbors out there put out a fire. And like I said, firefighters here, the LAFD is doing an amazing job. They are battling this from the ground and also from above. We've heard those choppers. We've seen the water drops. And in fact, I was was telling Joe Perez, the photojournalist I'm with tonight, said if we get too close, we might actually get wet. So we have to be just, you know, when we hear those helicopters, we have to just move down a little bit because we could get wet. But a lot of firefighters here are out here, multiple engines. They're battling this one. This is such a, you know, densely populated area, and obviously there's a huge danger should these flames start up a new fire and you know, start up a fire in this neighborhood. There are so many homes, so many apartments, and we talked about the mandatory evacuations. You know, this is the fire that started around 5:30, just with about 10 acres, and it has exploded. This was around the 2300 block of Solar Drive, and now there are so many evacuation orders, and people are frustrated. You know, some people don't want to leave, but it's really for their own good, for their safety. Firefighters are saying just leave, you know, access open in case they have to go inside to battle the blaze. You know, hopefully that won't be the case, and they can battle this fire from above and get it under control before it sparks another fire.
Can we talk about the contrast between what you saw last night and what you're seeing tonight? I'm thinking about your picture 24 hours ago in Altadena when the winds was whipping you in every direction. You could barely stand up. Ashes were coming in every direction. It was so windy that there was no water dropping at all. Tonight, it looks like the wind relatively calm. And you do see those water drops. This is a real advertisement for those water dropping helicopters, huh?
Absolutely. Thank goodness for the weather changing. You can see, you know, if you look at the trees, there's no movement. It was insane last night. Those winds were violent. Just, you know, impossible for any aircrafts to do their job. But now you can hear it. Can you hear it? They're flying above us. They're probably going to make another drop, perhaps not necessarily where we are close because they just dropped, but they are definitely doing their job. There are ground crews here going up Runyon Canyon right now, as you can see, and there are several homes. I've been told there are a couple of homes up there that are obviously in danger, and they're making sure, taking care of structure protection. And of course, we've got to move out of the way here.
Yeah. And Gina,
LAPD is also helping and making sure that people stay out of the area so that firefighters can do their job.
Well, and for your knowledge, because I know you're interacting with so many people who may need a place to go, Hollywood High School on Highland Avenue, that has just opened as an evacuation center as well. So Hollywood High School Evacuation Center, you can let folks know if they need a place to go.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Gina, thank you so much for your reporting. Let's get back to the Palisades fire. Chelsea Edwards, she was there along PCH much of last night. She's back in the Palisades, and I understand that you have another structure burning behind you. Do we have Chelsea? Okay, in the meantime, that was a nice water drop that we just witnessed.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time, Marla, since we've been doing this, and we started our coverage yesterday at 10:30 in the morning, and we're now doing this tonight at 8:20. We haven't taken a commercial since. And this is like the first fire where we've seen progress. Like we've seen them actually start to put out a fire. Yesterday was just every time we looked at something, it exploded and just kept getting bigger and more homes and all the rest of it. And this looks like more, frankly, like a typical firefight that we would see in Southern California when you put a lot of water on something, you don't have crazy winds. You know, LAFD is so smart. They are able to knock this thing down, and that's great. Chelsea and her crew obviously getting ready. Chelsea, you are on right now. I don't know if you can hear us yet. When you can, all right, why don't you show us, talk about where you are, because this firefight in Palisades is going a lot worse than what we're seeing in Hollywood.
Oh, I mean, it's staggering when you drive in from Sunset. So we approach from the 405. We approach going westbound along Sunset, and as you drive, there's obviously no service. There's no lights anywhere, so it's hard to see. But you can just see the shells of home after home after home, building after building. We're kind of near the Palisades Village right now, and I want to show you this church. This is the Community United Methodist Church of Pacific Palisades. Look at this destruction. I mean, hardly anything left standing. These beams have been smoldering what looks like for hours. No firefighters have been here putting any water on it. I mean, the good news about this particular structure is that it's got these rock walls on either side of it. That's obviously the only thing that is going to be left standing at the end. And you can see this this tower in the background. I'm not sure what this was or what this is, but that is still standing a tiny bit. But this is the scene that we are seeing over and over and over again as you drive throughout different neighborhoods in the Pacific Palisades. It is like something out of a movie. I mean, it's staggering the amount of devastation that this community has seen. Again, we're right down the street. We're on Via de la Paz, so we're very close to the Pacific Palisades, the village. When you drive along there, the facades of so many of those businesses, everything is just gone. And again, it's a really eerie thing at night because there are no lights. The only light that you can see are glows from places like this. So you can see the fire glows from homes that are actively burning, and that's it. There are no lights. There's no electricity. There is no cell service. The only reason that you're able to see us right now is because of a Starlink connection that we just got today. That's the only reason we're able to hear and communicate with you guys right now, because there's absolutely no cell service at all in this whole area. It's also a ghost town, which is a good thing. There's no people. You can't drive onto Sunset Boulevard. You can't get this far. So there's nobody walking around. There's nobody driving, which just creates, again, this really eerie, apocalyptic kind of vibe as you're driving around. I mean, scenes like this, there's just nothing left here. I mean, you look at these what appear to be wooden beams that are just collapsing on themselves. Everything that was inside this church is gone. I mean, it really does look like the only things that will be left standing are these rock walls, parts of these rock foundations. You can see over here as well, parts of the outlines of some more of these rock structures. So those will be the only things left standing. But the crazy thing is, on Via de la Paz, all the structures around this are still standing. So you see situations like this where entire neighborhoods are completely flattened. There's not a single home on some streets. And then areas like this where you've got one thing burning, but everything around it is still intact. So it's going to be interesting to really take count of the destruction and of how many structures have burned and how they burned, because when you're looking at it, it seems like a lot of these are just ember driven, like an ember dropped on these buildings or on one of these buildings, because that's the only thing that's on fire. Everything else is left standing. We're also feeling these winds kind of kicking up. I don't know if you can kind of see the smoke and the embers flying this way, but we've just been feeling that in the last, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes. There are these winds that have really been kicking up here, kind of ripping through, and they're just fanning the things that are left burning. But again, there's really nothing left standing on any of the structures that have been burning, because there just has not been an active firefight to put these things out. Everything that has burned is really, it appears to be a total loss. So unbelievable destruction here in the Pacific Palisades. So many people are going to be affected by this and are just, it's just going to be such a long process for so many people going forward, you guys.
Chelsea, you were there last night. The winds were howling. How do you compare night to night?
I would say this is different. We were also in a different location, and that might have something to do with it. We were on PCH last night, and that was a hurricane. I mean, it felt like when I've covered hurricanes on the East Coast in the past. This doesn't feel like that, but it's still very strong. I mean, this doesn't feel like a typical windy day. This feels like an extraordinarily windy day. I mean, look at these embers. Yeah. You see them just flying right in that direction. Then it's going to flip around at some point. The wind is going to shift, and then they'll start flying the other direction, either directly onto us or up the street or back that way. So, I mean, it's still a very active wind event that's happening here, and that's obviously what's keeping these things burning. But again, there's not a lot left to burn in the structures that have burned. They're just gone.
Chelsea, thank you. You know, let's bring meteorologist Adam Kruger into the conversation. And Adam, so often here we talk about microclimates in Southern California. And we just saw an example of that. Where Chelsea was, lots of wind. Where Gina was in Runyon Canyon, almost no wind, and you see very different firefights because of that. Right,
exactly. But I will say, just overall, I mean, winds have come down, and Chelsea was describing it compared to what we had at this time yesterday, when it was just about as extreme as it gets. You know, you'd be sitting in a car and that thing would be rocking around, or it was almost difficult at times to stand out in the wind yesterday. But the illustration behind Chelsea, that's great illustration of what the winds are doing. It's still breezy. You still see the embers flying around. But yeah, it's way different in some areas. In fact, in a lot of Los Angeles right now, winds are under 10 miles an hour. You get more so into the foothills, the valleys, and up into the mountains. We still see gusts up to 40, 45. And just in general, where a lot of these fires are, it's like 15 to 30 mile per hour gusts. Still breezy, not extreme. And that's going to be the same trend we see going forward. So let's talk about what we have, first of all, with the red flag warning that continues still into Friday. You'll remember, though, it was a PDS, particularly dangerous situation, red flag warning prior, which is like a category up. Now it's known as a regular red flag warning, and that continues into Friday. Again, winds will relax gradually as we go through the night, but we do expect another wind peak. That's going to be coming around midday Thursday and lasting into Friday morning. We also, though, still until 10 o'clock tonight, have a high wind warning across a large part of our area, and this has been the trouble zone for the most part this entire time. Mostly to the north of Los Angeles is where the strongest winds have been. So still in these areas, the National Weather Service says gusts could get up to 60 miles per hour. We're finding most gusts below that right now. And again, the winds will keep going down as we go through the night. Here's that red flag warning area, and what's interesting in this, and I'll have to go look into this, but it looks like between the last time I showed you this graphic and now, the National Weather Service has now included a pretty good chunk of Los Angeles, which was previously excluded from the red flag warning. So now there's just more areas included in the red flag warning. Along the coast would be one of the exceptions, though. Now, our forecast wind gusts, we're going to see some numbers here that are a lot better than what it looked like last night and early this morning, but still breezy, and that's going to be highlighted pretty nicely by the purple areas. But notice at midnight tonight how the winds definitely are lower for a huge part of the area. Still some gusty spots in the mountains, but we're doing much better overall. Then as we go into tomorrow, again, midday, and this is what I talked about, that next surge of winds, we're going to find gusts that could get up to 40, even near 50 miles per hour. Notice the model, for example, around Ontario happens to say maybe close to 60 mile per hour gusts. So we see, again, a big area with strong winds, but not the entire area, because there's this pocket here, and a lot of times this happens around the LA basin, kind of protected by the mountains, so it's not going to be very windy everywhere, but tomorrow that'll go into Thursday night and Friday morning. So here's a look at, let's go into Friday at 9 a.m. and again, the purple areas are really a good visual marker as to where the strongest winds will be. And then watch what happens as we continue into Friday. We're going to lose a little data there, but you can still see the colors that Friday afternoon we really start to see these winds back off. And that's essentially going to be the end of the current Santa Ana wind event. I want to go a little farther ahead in the forecast than we've done so far this evening to talk about something that we're at least monitoring and keeping in the back of our mind for next week. So as we look at the pattern right now, and we've talked about this for not just this week, but last week with the setup for this event. There's the high pressure, there's the low. Between the two, a big difference in pressure and winds just zipping between these and going in the offshore direction. That's the Santa Ana wind. So that's our current weather pattern. This low is going to get out of here. The high still hangs out here, which still is giving an offshore kind of Santa Ana component to the winds. They just won't be nearly as strong. That's a look at Friday morning. As we go late day Friday, notice the shift in the wind direction now, more coming in from the northwest and not as strong as well. So that's kind of the end of the Santa Ana winds for this current round. What we are watching for next week, and keep in mind now we're looking at Monday night, Tuesday morning next week. There's a lot of time where things can alter a little bit between now and then. But we see not as intensive a setup as what we have now, but we see some type of setup with this low. If it gets positioned south of us, then we're going to find, which the winds go counterclockwise around that, we're going to find again maybe an offshore Santa Ana wind event that could be moderate to strong, whereas this last one would be about as extreme as it gets. I'm going to show you a different model here that goes a little farther, just showing you wind gusts if you're curious about what's coming after we get past this week. So Saturday is looking mostly okay. Sunday is looking mostly okay as well. We go into Monday night now, and here, and again, this doesn't mean it's going to exactly pan out like this, but this is now Monday night of next week. This is is that maybe moderate to Santa Ana wind event we'll have to watch. I know this is kind of the last thing on a lot of people's minds, considering we have so much happening right now, but I just want to put this out there. You know, if I were doing a regular forecast on a regular day, we'd be looking this far ahead, and I'd be letting you know about this. So I just want you to be aware that sometime around Monday, Tuesday of next week, there could be another Santa Ana wind event that we will watch. So we'll leave it there. We'll go back to you, Alex. But yes, right now winds are still gusty. We saw that from the live video. Not really strong everywhere, though. Kind of the nature of what we have around here, the topography, the winds hit some areas harder than others, but it will be an improving night as far as the wind speeds. They get lower as we go through tonight, and I'm hoping that the crews can kind of put a dent on containing some of these. We already know the planes and helicopters are flying around, and they're at least able to attack this from the air, so that should be able to continue. As far as the weather goes, that should be not a problem to have that air attack continuing through the night tonight.
Yeah, making a huge impact in Hollywood, which we're so grateful to see. Thank you so much. We're looking live right now. Susan Hirasuna is in Carbon Beach. Susan, first time we've had you live on tonight. Good to have you with us for the coverage. Where are you, and what are you seeing behind you? Doesn't look pretty.
Well, thank you, Alex. Yeah, it's been quite an ordeal to get around this area because so many of the roads are blocked off. We tried to come down Malibu Canyon in order to get to this point in Malibu, Carbon Beach. So Carbon Beach, right now, this is the northernmost or westernmost part of Malibu that's been affected by the Palisades Fire. You see behind me that there are multiple homes that have been affected, either terribly damaged or absolutely destroyed. Behind this fire truck, there's actually a duplex of sorts that is pretty well gone or badly damaged. And then all the way down, this is Pacific Coast Highway, again, at Carbon Beach. You can see how many units are here in this location. And just a few, I don't know, an hour or so ago, there was an evac order for Carbon Beach, as in, like, you must go now. Now, we didn't see any evidence that people were actually leaving the area. It felt as if there were people who thought that it might be a good idea just to go. But the other interesting thing, once again, we talk about this all the time, where the fire really came from the hills on the mountainside, right, away from the ocean, and yet these are the homes that were damaged or destroyed by the fire. And immediately across the street, there are buildings that seem to be untouched by the fire. Now, a couple of other things that I've observed, and I can report to you, Alex, is that again, the egresses and ingresses to this area, very difficult indeed. We drove up from Pacific Coast Highway through Topanga, and that was very dangerous because you think about fires, you don't think about landslides. And there was a lot of land that had slipped off of the hillside onto Topanga Canyon, enough so that that lane, either a south or northbound lane, was blocked by all of that dirt. Some of it was smoldering. It was interesting to see. I wasn't thinking that that's what we were going to see, but that's the first time I've seen something where the hillside was affected by the heat or the fire. Also, the other thing about that area is that a lot of the power poles were burning, and so they were leaning, and what made it very nerve-wracking is the thought of perhaps going back down Topanga Canyon. I was worried that by the time we left the area where we were near the village, that it would just mean that we were going to encounter power poles that have snapped due to the fact that they had the burning embers. But what I wanted to do earlier today, but it's very difficult to get around on PCH, is to go farther down south towards Dukes, Malibu, if you know this area. So you go down this PCH towards Dukes. Just past there is a huge swath of oceanside homes, beachside homes that are just gone. And unfortunately, I do know people who had a property right there where I'm talking about, and the whole swath of those homes, not just his, but all the people around him and farther south, that area was gone. It was really remarkable, Alex and Marla, because, you know, you think that because you're close to the ocean and the ocean breezes, you might be okay. And for many years, those houses were spared. But this is unbelievable to me. And as you get closer to Topanga Canyon, that was unusual to me, too, because let me just point out that if you know the area, and I grew up in this area, I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, Simi Valley. So we're talking about the feed store on the corner of Topanga and PCH, gone. Everything on that side of PCH, gone. So we're talking about the Real Inn, Chelada Thai, Rosenthal Wines. It's just gone, decimated. There weren't, by the time I saw it, there weren't even any burning embers. So it is just, it's terrible. Gladstone's mostly unaffected. Moon Shadows, if you know Moon Shadows also appears to be gone. Mastro's was okay. But again, just like this block here, it's so interesting where you can see that, you know, you'll have an absolutely damaged and destroyed house, and then you'll have a little block where it seems like the buildings are okay. We do see a lot of activity right now. We're seeing a lot of fire trucks come and go. So right now, this is an area that they are focusing on. Alex, Marla?
Okay. Earlier today, we had Ed Laskos on, who was near the Gladstones area. He had told us that he believed that it was gone. But, I mean, a lot of fog of war, and it'll be interesting to find out all the rest of it. But as Susan, as somebody who knows this area so well, and you think about, and is such a foodie, you are, just these are such iconic restaurants that people not only from here but visit from all around the world. Some of the most beautiful pictures, having drinks right by the ocean, and sort of are celebrated the culture of Malibu.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I don't think Gladstone's was gone. We were in the parking lot, and I thought it was okay. Moon Shadows, however, going further farther north. Moon Shadows, you can't even find it.
Let me ask you this.
When I went to go find my friend's house, yes, Marla.
Well, we had reported about the Real Inn and Chelada. We knew that last night. There was also word that Mastro's was gone as well, but you just said that Mastro's is still standing.
Yeah, Mastro's is still standing. The Moon Shadows was interesting because, yeah, Moon Shadows has been there. I mean, I think I went there for one of my prom dinners in high school. That's how long it's been there.
I went to Duke's.
So that was a while ago. But you would see it as you drive down PCH. You always saw it. You know, it was easy to spot. And just like when I went to go see the status of my friend's house, I had to rely on the navigation on my car to see precisely where the address was, because it was unrecognizable. And ditto with Moon Shadows. It's like I drove back south towards Gladstone, and I saw nothing.
So
I know
surreal.
where it is
so sad.
in general.
Yeah, of course. And that's such a landmark and icon for so many years and decades. Susan, we thank you so much. Glad that you were able to join us live. We know that the cell service and our transmitting capabilities can be, you know, hairy given the situation. So thank you very much. Joining us on the line is someone who took the time out last night, who was under evacuation from the Palisades Fire. Charlotte is joining us tonight. If my memory serves me correctly, you basically were evacuated a few times from various locations and then ended up finding some refuge in Santa Monica, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, hi. That is correct. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. What's your situation tonight, and do we know, is your house safe?
So as of now, we are still unclear about my home. About 3 hours ago, I actually went back with my parents because we knew that there was going to be a moment of clearness and we could go back for some more belongings, which was a bit scary at the time, and it was a very quick in and out going through the mountains with the fires and literally watching like active fires right by us. But we are not very optimistic about our home tonight, so we decided to go back in for more.
Not very optimistic.
No, we aren't. Unfortunately, the fire is basically closing in on our little neighborhood from all sides. Once I had left, I got word that firefighters were finally entering our neighborhood, but I, as of the past hour, don't have any further updates about our house. But yeah, I had to evacuate. Ended up on foot yesterday. So.
And you're and by the way, we're looking at a live picture right now from the Hollywood Hills. Looks like we see a lot of black and not a lot of smoke, which is a really good sign in terms of the firefight there. Pacific Palisades has been a much tougher firefight. We talked to you last night. You're a high school student going through this. What has the last 24 hours been like for you?
I mean, it's just been a lot of chaos and just not knowing what's going on, knowing what's next. It's just been very unpredictable. Luckily, I have now received footage from friends and such that Pali High School is mostly intact.
Yeah, they said 70% intact is what the LAUSD said. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm very grateful for that, to have not completely lost my school. But unfortunately, almost every single one of my friends have lost their homes. I'm actually here right now with another family who lost their home in the Via de la Paz bluff. They completely lost their home. And their dad actually went back and visibly saw the damage this morning with my dad.
I'm so sorry to hear that, but tonight you're safe. How are your parents holding up?
I mean, they're definitely holding up better than myself and my brothers. Obviously, they're being very strong for us, and I'm very grateful for them. They've just kind of been a rock, and my dad very bravely has gone back into the Palisades 2 times today now, and saved a lot of stuff, given a lot of people that we know updates on their homes, and just helps out with a lot of the unknowns. So right now we're all safe in Santa Monica. We're with friends, we're with family. So right now it's okay. Unfortunately, my grandma also, we just got confirmation that she lost her house too and all her belongings.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that about your grandmother and all of your friends who lost their homes. How has the communication been? Has there been communication between you and, the city and the firefighters? Anything you want to speak to there?
Yeah, I'm obviously very grateful for the firefighters, and I know that they're spread quite thin. Unfortunately, when we did go back into the Palisades Highlands and basically we're driving around the entire vicinity of our home, we did not, when we were there, see any active personnel working on the fires surrounding us. But my aunt left a bit after us and says she saw about 6 or 7 fire trucks heading up towards our area. So I know that they're doing their very best, and I'm very grateful for that.
Well, we are glad that you and your family are safe. We hope that the firefighters are able to save your home, and we appreciate you calling in to check in, and hopefully we can check in tomorrow and get some good news on that front.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. And we appreciate any goodness you can send our way for our home.
All right.
We're sending it all to you, Charlotte, and your family. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Chelsea Edwards continues our live team coverage right now. She is in Pacific Palisades and seeing some embers flying behind her. Chelsea.
I mean, we're watching a massive church just crumble before our eyes. We just saw this huge supporting beam collapse a few minutes ago. There's just going to be nothing left but the rock walls that are surrounding this church. This is the Community United Methodist Church of Pacific Palisades. I want to show you the sign that just, it's such a contrast from what we're seeing and what was happening here just a few days ago. Join us for a joyful Christmas season, which is, I'm sure that they had here just a little while ago, and now there is nothing left of this church. Now, as we walk over here, it's hard to tell what was here, what this footprint is, but if we walk over here, there's a sign that indicates the preschool was that way, a sanctuary is also that way, and then the church office was over here. But look at this. I mean, just huge, what look like concrete buildings that are just collapsed. There's nothing left inside what was this church, this massive church. It is just nothing but rubble. I talked to some firefighters that were here a couple of minutes ago, and they just said, yeah, there's nothing they could do. This just is going to burn out. Their resources are just stretched so thin. But I mean, when you look at scenes like this, you can see that huge piece of concrete and just nothing but rubble as far as you can see. It's really staggering. It looks like a donation box here that's charred. These embers are swirling around. I also want to point out this kind of bizarre thing that we can't quite figure out. There's a bicycle that looks like it was just abandoned. I don't know what happened here or what the story is behind this, but you see things like this and it points to a very chaotic, very stressful scene. I don't know what would cause somebody to just leave their bicycle in this manner and just leave it on the street, but it probably had something to do with what we're seeing here. So you can also see what the winds are doing by looking at these flames. I mean, look how forcefully they're pushed in that one direction. The embers as well. Oh, look at that beam just coming down. I mean, we're just watching it crumble bit by bit. When we got here, there was still some structure standing. You could make out what looked like a courtyard here. That's just gone in the last 30 minutes or so. There's just nothing left. We can also see some, looks like gas-fed fires in various places, and that just makes it so tough because even if you do put some of this out, there's still gas that's coming up. This is just going to continue to burn, especially with the winds the way that they are. There's just nothing that anyone can do. This is just all going to burn. And you see scene after scene of this. I mean, driving in from the east, we came in along Sunset Boulevard toward the Pacific Palisades from the east on Sunset, and it just looks like a war zone. I mean, the only way that you can tell what anything is the light from the fires that are still burning different homes. So you look around, there's entire neighborhoods that are just flattened. I mean, you can't even tell whether or not there were homes there at one point. You know there was some sort of structure there because there's debris, but you don't know what was there. And the only way you can tell that is because there's a nearby fire and you can see the glow from that fire. There's no power, no electricity, no cell service, no Wi-Fi, absolutely no connectivity out here. The only way we're able to do this is via Starlink. But you drive through and you just see scene after scene after scene like this. This is repeated all throughout the Pacific Palisades right now. All you have to do is drive up and down these streets to see scenes like this. It is just utter devastation and just truly shocking to drive through it and to see the number of buildings that were impacted. I mean, I think this total number is going to be so far from what we initially thought, so much more than what we initially thought. I can hear firefighters in the distance. I hear the fire sirens, not sure where they're heading. It looks like they're heading westbound on Sunset Boulevard, so something must be happening over there. They're here. There's a firefighter presence here, certainly. They just said they're doing what they can to protect homes and properties as well as they can. Everybody has been evacuated so far that they're concerned about. You know, they don't feel that there's a danger to anybody in this area anymore, other than the property situation, which is obviously just out of control. So just devastating to look at, devastating to drive through, devastating to watch scenes like this beautiful church literally crumbling before our eyes as this fire slowly destroys it bit by bit. I mean, it's just staggering, Alex and Marla.
Yeah, we can hear those sirens coming, so, you know, we'll see where they are headed. If they are anywhere near you, of course, we will check back. Chelsea Edwards, we appreciate you so much. Let's get to the Eaton Fire. That one is almost 11,000 acres. This is the one that turned deadly with 5 people dying in the Eaton Fire. Haley Winslow, you're on scene. Where are you and what's behind you?
Marla, we're on Sacramento Street right now. We've been here all day. A lot of stuff that we've been wanting to show you, but our signal is horrendous here. But how about some good news today? I think we could use a little bit of that, even just a tiny silver lining. We introduced you to a guy at about 2 p.m. today, Chris Anderson, and thanks to you guys in the public, all over the country. This guy was out of water, of course. He and his wife going to the store to get bottled water to throw on their house. He lost his uncle's house, his mother's house. There was fire literally all around his house, and he was desperate for somebody to come help him. The community stepped up, and he right now has a home still tonight because of you. So here's what he had to say earlier.
I hope I can get some help. To know that my house is standing and then I might lose it because I just couldn't get help. That will even be more painful than it being gone last night.
So again, I mean, I know that, you know, LAFD was asking only firefighters yesterday that are, you know, with the force but maybe off duty to help, but maybe if there's somebody out there who's got firefighter experience and they're trying to see what they can do, anything you can do to help guys like Chris Anderson who are just begging. They're out of water and there's nothing else that they can do. I know he could really use the help. So people did step up and help. Literally all over the country, people were dropping off, giving them tips and then coming to his house and dropping off cases of water. And with everybody's help, they were able to save his house. Of course, there's still fire all around it, so he's hoping that it stays that way. Poor guy, I mean, he was literally crying, you know, just desperate. So thank you to everybody out there who stepped up and helped him. I've got one guy out here who's trying to save his house right now. Matt, if you're there, come on out. There he is. He's been here. He actually hasn't left. Tell me what's going on. Your house is next door to this one that's burning right here, if you can see it.
Yeah, so we got it mostly out. I've been up since about 3:30 this morning fighting it with a garden hose and a Sawzall. And it was touch and go. I wanted to leave a bunch of times, but I stuck through. My friends came through and helped me out, and eventually the fire department showed up right in the nick of time when this building was just taking off. My house had started to catch on fire.
Next door to the one that's on fire. Right there.
And they got here just in time. They came through, saved the day, and yeah, still here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for saving your neighbor's house. I know you were on the roof fighting the embers. I will let you go back to what you're doing. I want to kind of give you paint a picture of where we are and what's going on. So we've got all these burnt cars around us here in Sacramento Street in Altadena. There's a jungle gym of down power lines everywhere around here, and it's actually kind of scary because it's so dark that you don't often see them. So we hope that they're, you know, obviously the power's out and stuff, but you never know if there's a live wire. We've got this down telephone pole right here. And every house, except for Matt's right there, every house is gone. It's completely flattened. If we walk over here, I don't want to lose the signal, so I'm going to be careful, but we'll show you all of these flattened homes, and it's like this everywhere. I know Chelsea was just talking about a church crumbling, several churches down the street from here, completely flattened. Bank of America is still on fire. And I wanted to tell you a few things that I have just want to pass along from some friends. LAFD, for example, one thing they wanted me to please pass along is the 911 system. Obviously, please only use it in emergency, not if you have a problem because it's backed up. And the other thing is the manpower. I asked them about, you know, everyone's obviously stretched so thin, and at least LAFD, for instance, I know about them. They said we've got plenty of people, we don't have enough rigs, and that's the problem, is that they need to be assigned a rig to safely and effectively fight the fire. So there are definitely firefighters at home tonight that wish they were out here fighting and can't because they don't have enough rigs to go around. Now, we've been driving around, we've seen tons of fire hydrants that are out, so they're completely dry. You can see right, basically, you know, there's like a blue cap on them, and you can kind of see through them and see that there's no water. And then the other thing that I would just pass along, just trying to, you know, provide information in any way that could help. Maybe if you're not in one of these fire zones yet, but you're worried that you might be next, if you have a swimming pool, you can go to Home Depot, and we've talked to residents in the last fire, in Malibu, and the Camarillo fire, who did this. Just some news you can use kind of thing. They bought a $1,000 pump at Home Depot and a 2-inch hose with a like a sprayer on it, and they were able to use their pool water, their swimming pool water, to put out their house fire. One friend put out 5 house fires in Malibu, or 5 homes, including his own, in Malibu with a pump. We've done a story before. I know I did one a couple years ago on a firefighter in Malibu with a system called the Fire Defense Service, and he literally patented something very similar where he uses a pump and uses his pool water, and it's been remarkable in situations like this. So just in these situations where you're kind of on your own and firefighters are stretched thin and you're like, what can I do to help my property and save my house for my kids? That would be something you could do. So you could either use that system or go to Home Depot and buy your own. So just trying to, you know, pass along information that could help. And then the other thing I just wanted to talk about is just the looters here. I mean, I actually was screaming at Matt originally before because I thought he might have been a looter. Thankfully, he was not, but we've seen dozens and dozens around town here taking advantage of people evacuated. So that is infuriating to see out here. All right, we'll send it back to you. We're live here in Altadena. I'm Haley Winslow, Fox 11 News.
Haley, thank you. We now go back to the other fire that we're following right now, or one of the fires we're following, the Palisades Fire. Matthew Seedorf has been moving around. Matthew, where are you now?
Actually, we moved from the Palisades Fire. We're now at the Sunset Fire. We're in the Hollywood area. We're at the bottom of Runyon Canyon Trail, and we're looking up towards Hollywood Hills right now. You can probably see the flames kind of shining up on the hill there. We were trying to actually see how close we could get, and we were driving up there, and while we were driving, police told us to turn around with their loudspeakers, saying that the flames, they're worried, could be coming down the hill. It does appear like things are hopefully calming down. I know we've been reporting that the wind seems relatively calm where we are, but there was a momentary scare, I guess you could say, where flames actually came from a hot spot, a flare-up, right close to this apartment where we're standing right now, and they had to get out of the apartment and evacuate. And fortunately, it looks like fire crews have already left and put out that little hot spot that flared up. But again, just looking up to the hill, definitely a scary scene. And you can see some smoke kind of a little lower in the hill and those embers that come up in the air. And that's the concern, because those embers can fly and set stuff on fire downwind. And we've been seeing helicopters flying by making those drops. I think I hear one right now. So yeah, it's definitely an intense situation. Definitely looks like it's getting a little brighter over there right now too. But I'll go ahead and send it back to you for now.
Okay, we thank you, and you've been on the move. Matthew Seedorf was on the Palisades Fire, and now he's on the Sunset Fire in Hollywood Hills, right at the base of Runyon Canyon, which we know so many of you have probably been to. Sunset Fire, this is our view from Skyfox, and from this view, I'm not sure if... Oh, this is the Palisades Fire. I see. So this is looking from the Sunset Fire in Hollywood, looking toward the Palisades Fire. Okay, so there's a big difference between, big distance, I should say, from one to the other. So we're following all of these fires for you tonight. We're approaching the 9 p.m. hour. So let's just sort of recap of where we stand right now.
Before we get there, though, we're going to get real quickly to a phoner, Steve Carmona, who is the city manager for the Pico Rivera, joining us on the line. And obviously Pico Rivera not at the center of all this, but you all are helping out in a big way. Talk to us about the efforts that your city are underway right now.
Yes, thank you. First and foremost, from the city of Pico Rivera, our thoughts and prayers are with the families and communities impacted by these fires. The city council gave me direction to see how we could help some of the families that are experiencing this devastation. So they allowed me to create a partnership with one of our operators for the Pico Rivera Sports Arena, Lenoria Entertainment. And what we want to do is offer free boarding for horses and livestock displaced by the fires. You know, again, just trying to see how we can help and in the way possible. One of the things that these families are suffering right now is we really want to make sure that they focus on their safety and recovery without worrying about their animals' well-being.
Yeah, thank you for all that you're doing. You know, I'm sure that you've been in Los Angeles for some time now. What are your just personal thoughts on what we're experiencing?
Oh, it's just a devastating tragedy that a lot of folks are experiencing. I mean, just to understand the loss of life, the loss of their home, the loss of their personal belongings, and of course, what we want to try and do is help out whatever we can. We have this asset in our city, and we feel, you know, livestock and animals are a very important part of everybody's family and their belongings. So we want to do our part wherever we can. This is just one part of what we're trying to do. We're also collaborating with our neighboring cities to see how we can also dispatch resources, whether it's fire personnel, public safety personnel, or other assets that can help these communities get through this ongoing tragedy.
Our thanks to you, Steve Carmona, and your city for helping out in a big way. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right, it is now the top of the hour, 9 o'clock. Let's reset. Here we go.
This area is a total loss.
Thank God we were able to save our house, and it's very unfortunate for everybody else.
I'm scared. My daughter is scared. She's 8.
Oh, the little girl's crying.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, it is scary. I understand that.
We had to evacuate, and there's a fire nearby.
At 9 o'clock, we welcome you to our continuing coverage of the multiple fires that are burning in L.A. County. I'm Marla Tejas here inside the studio alongside Alex Michelson, and this is a live look from Skyfox right now.
And we're focused right now on the Palisades fire. I've got multiple fires. Is all burning right now. We've got the Palisades Fire, which is burning in Pacific Palisades. We've got the Eaton Fire, which is burning in the Altadena neighborhood. We got the Hurst Fire, which is in the Sylmar area. And since we made that map, there's another fire, which is the Sunset Fire, which is burning kind of in the middle of all that in the Hollywood neighborhood as well. Hollywood Hills specifically. So far, it has not actually burned into the Hollywood neighborhood, which is the most important part.
There are several mandatory evacuation zones as it relates to the Sunset Fire in the Hollywood Hills. We'll have all of that information for you up on the screen momentarily. But these are the fires that we have been watching and will continue to watch. Obviously, the most devastating fire is the Palisades Fire that has burned almost 16,000 acres. This is at last check. But okay, here is the Palisades Fire information on your screen. 0% containment, at least 1,000 structures destroyed. We're talking small, large businesses, complete neighborhoods wiped out, and at least 60,000 people under evacuation orders tonight. Now on to the Eaton Fire,
which has turned deadly. 5 people have died. Circumstances around their deaths not known yet. Roughly 100 structures have been destroyed there. The Eaton Fire exploding in size over 10,000 acres, 0% containment, estimated 70,000 people there under evacuation orders.
And then that Hurst Fire that Alex just mentioned in Sylmar scorched more than 850 acres. So that's some updated information. It was at 700 acres, so now 850 acres, 0% containment, and those mandatory evacuations do remain in place. Livestock has been affected in many of these fires. Now, that massive wildfire in the Pacific Palisades area has destroyed, as mentioned, at least 1,000 structures, and officials are calling this the most destructive fire in LA history.
Yeah. Let's go now to Fox 11's Ed Laskos, who is live for us on Pacific Coast. We're going to go. Okay, so we're going to wait for Ed. As we know, we have lots of technical challenges on this night, but as we look from Skyfox, you really get a sense of the scope of this.
Ambulance has been notified.
All right, we are going to go on the phone to Brian Nogard, who is in the Hollywood Hills, and is he somebody who's been evacuated? Brian apparently has shot some amazing video as well that we hope to show you. Brian, are you joining us?
Yes, I am. Good evening.
Talk to us about your night, what you've seen.
Yes, it's been quite a night. So I was looking at an app, and I saw that the fire had just begun. So I drove to my house, which is adjacent to Runyon Canyon, up Curson Canyon, and lo and behold, the entire ridge was engulfed in flames, and it was almost, I would say, pure pandemonium up there. There were some very suspicious people walking around. Cops were yelling at everyone, and I got in and grabbed a couple things at my house and secured the external premises, and then was really forced to go back down the hill. And so I have to say first thank you to the first responders. This is the first fire that I've seen in the last 48 hours where you could see a measurable change by each drop from the helicopters. They were really fighting this fire vigorously and with a lot of attention to detail. A couple of times they missed on their drops, and they came back furiously, 3 to 4 minutes later, and I think they saved the entire canyon. So one has to say thank you to these individuals, the folks in the air, the folks on the ground, the firemen, the cops, and it was not an easy environment to deal with. A lot of people were trying to get up the hill, and it was rather crazy down on Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah, I mean, we have a reporter on the scene, Brian, and we saw just the gridlock of people trying to get out, trying to make their way to safety. So we know about that. You know, thanks for those images that you just showed. And we've seen such, and we've talked about this on the air, you know, what a difference in response to be able to see water drop after water drop. Is this something that you were just an innocent bystander there and you just decided just to roll? How did this all come about?
Well, I have a residence up there, and so, you know, of course, like anyone, I was very concerned about the integrity of the property, and I wanted to make sure that my neighbors were okay. And so I wasn't there when it first started, but I flew up, as one could imagine, as soon as I got the news. And it was a very eerie scene, very, very dark, very smoky. Up in Curson Canyon, it happens to be adjacent to Runyon Canyon, which is, of course, a popular hiking trail. And, you know, the first thing that I thought about was, how did this happen? And, of course, I asked a couple of neighbors, and they didn't really know much. But one of the folks that lives very close to me, who's a very smart man, Harvard-trained lawyer, I asked him, do you know what happened? And he said, I can tell you what happened. I saw this fire when it was very small on the top of the hill. And I said, how small? And he basically opened his arms up, you know, maybe the size of a small Christmas tree. And he says, about that big. And I said, you got to be kidding me. What time was that? And he said, that was at 5:35 p.m. And I didn't think much of it. In fact, when I first looked at it, he said, I wasn't even sure it was a fire. And I said, well, what was the first thing that came to mind after that? And he said, arson. Like, there's nobody hiking at 5:35 on that finger trail, and there's no power lines. There are power lines in Runyon Canyon, but they're to the north. And he said, that has to be deliberate. And that really got my attention. And he said, once it was, you know, once it was lit, it grew very big, very fast. And so that was probably about 15 to 20 minutes before I actually got up to the apex of the canyon. So rather suspicious. Certainly would love more information as it develops, but makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. And as now we're looking at a live picture, this must be in Pacific Palisades, I'm guessing, that we're looking at this home burning.
Can we confirm the live picture on this? This is the Sunset Fire.
So this is the first, as far as I can tell, first thing that we've seen in terms of a structure actually burning because of the Sunset Fire. And this particular structure here looks pretty well involved here. So that is, we don't see the massive flames. It's hard for me to tell from this particular image. I don't know if you can see our screen, you may be able to help us here. But we don't see those massive flames that we saw a couple hours ago, but the fact that we actually do see at least one structure burning is not good news, and you worry about the winds that were created with this and embers and all the rest of that. So we didn't completely get out of the woods with this particular fire here. So that is a tough to see. As we get closer there, you can see, looks like a pretty large, probably a house there. Yeah,
I mean, these are what the homes, many of them, look like in the Hollywood Hills. They are massive properties sloped on those hillsides. And so, yes, to your point, Alex, this is the first one that we've really seen ignite. And you see on the upper right-hand corner, left-hand corner, pardon me, it looks like some palms there are also on fire as well.
Yeah. So not what we wanted to see in terms of an update there. Thank you so much for your perspective and for sending us that video, and hope you're able to stay safe tonight.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was Brian Norgard joining us, who shot some pretty incredible water drop images from the Sunset Fire that we're looking live at in the Hollywood Hills. And this is a home, it appears to be, that is fully engulfed in flames. And, you know, the problem with this firefight, although it has been good to see those water drops happening, is that there's many flanks to it.
Right.
And so for crews to be able to station in those, you know, narrow streets on one side and then on the other side, and we were at one point counting 4 different little, if you will, spot fires that had erupted. And the original one was close to the Hollywood sign that we're hearing from a council member, Nithya Raman, who represents this district, that the Hollywood sign was not in its direct path. But nonetheless, there are mandatory evacuations for the Runyon Canyon area and many of these neighboring communities. And Alex, if you look at the bottom of the screen here, look at the emergency response down below.
Yeah, so we're now hearing that this image may actually be from Studio City, not from the Hollywood Hills. So hopefully we can get some good communication with our chopper going and get a perspective of where they are and get the maps up. And in the meantime, while we get our bearings on that front, let's go out to Ed Lascos, who is live in Pacific Palisades, to talk about the situation there.
Well, we still have the wind here, and we have an active firefight. But one quick point, we've moved from Pacific Palisades up PCH. We're now in Malibu, actually just under a mile north or west of Topanga Canyon. And here's the latest firefight. Remember when we were visiting with you about a couple hours ago, we pointed the camera up just before the press conference, and we had that large plume, big fireball up along the coast, Malibu. This is what was burning at that time. 1, 2, 3, 4, almost a half dozen structures here, from garages to homes to beach homes. Many of them burned, many of them still burning, active fire there as this rig goes by. Mikey will give you a look. Some fire up in the eaves, some firemen there in the front door. They got a charged line. They're trying to hit some of those hot spots, and then there's a garage right off to the right of it. Those cars, that was fully involved a little while ago. And then quick look further up PCH, you can see a utility pole. I think we can see that, right? I know it's dark over there. It gives you an idea. As the flames were roaring here, some of the embers hit that pole, broke it down. So you'll have infrastructure problems here, as well as a lot of this damage. This area was evacuated. That's the good news, so nobody hurt here. But unfortunately, more structures lost. And also, it shows you the continuing firefight we've had. This from the Palisades, Topanga Canyon, a little north of Topanga Canyon. You still have the fires in the hillsides, and you still have those blowing embers. You see the wind blowing the smoke in the air, the embers into the air. That's still a problem, because we still have a circling, swirling wind here, and at times you get a good gust. We're seeing more of this too here on Pacific Coast Highway. Sheriff units, black and whites, moving through. You heard Sheriff Luna at that press conference a couple of hours ago saying they will not tolerate looters. The DA also live on our air talking about no tolerance for looters. I think the DA said they'll get hit like a ton of bricks. So I'm thinking this is presumably what's going on, because there have been reports of looting in the area, up in Malibu, even back into the hills of the Palisades. So a much stronger law enforcement situation here tonight than we saw last night. Of course, last night it was a whole hell-bent firestorm. Quick other point, it's an interesting thing when you talk about history. This exact very same spot, guys, you remember this, I think it was last January, last February, we had all that rain, remember? And this part of the hillside right over here started coming down, and there was a huge boulder right up there. You remember that? And they had to close down PCH. They brought explosives up there. They blew the boulder up. It's the exact same spot right over here that came down, and now here we are about a year later, different situation, and we've got fire, but luckily nobody hurt here as the firefight continues from the Palisades now up here to Malibu.
Ed Lascos, thank you very, very much. We want to get back to the Studio City house fire that we are now over. So just to completely clarify here, this is not the Hollywood Hills. This is a Studio City house fire, and LAFD reporting this. This broke out just a few minutes ago at 8:52 to be precise. This is the 3600 block of North Sunswept Drive in Studio City. It's a 4-story home, well-involved fire. Firefighters are in the defensive mode, according to LAFD. And, you know, they're doing what they can for structure protection for those surrounding homes.
So you get an address here now. We're looking at Goodland Avenue, near Goodland Drive, also near Ventura Place as well. And it looks like there may be other structures, not clear if those are part of this same property. It doesn't look like they are. So, you know, a firefight here. Sorry about that incorrect information. Obviously, we got a lot of stuff going on. The chopper's moving all over. We're following 4 different fires, and it can be a little overwhelming and confusing. So our apologies about that. But this is in the Studio City neighborhood. This is the first time we've seen a fire like this in the Studio City neighborhood. Of course, on the other side of the hill from what we've been following closer to Runyon Canyon. This thing is going up. It looks like this is going to be a total loss. The effort here with firefighters is to try to prevent this from turning into a larger fire in this neighborhood. Thankfully, we don't have the winds that we had last night, but we still do have some real winds, and there are concerns about flying embers potentially lighting other homes on fire. It looks like that has happened, at least on this block.
You wonder about resources because they were already stretched thin between the Palisades Fire, the Eaton Fire, the Hurst Fire in Sylmar, the Sunset Fire in Hollywood Hills, and now on the other side of the hill in Studio City we have this, and it is now multiple structures. So the first structure to go up in flames is the one on the right, the 4-story home, and then it looks like the adjacent home also caught fire. The winds in this area, according to Gina Silva on the other side of the hill, they weren't that bad, thank goodness, but they don't have to be that bad for embers to fly and you know, set other homes, nearby homes on fire. And those embers, we've seen them flying miles, 1 to 2 miles to start spot fires. So let's hope that they are able to, you know, douse this as quickly as they can. You're seeing the water out there, which is a good thing. We know that we've had some water issues at almost every fire with the fire.
The pressure.
The pressure, thank you.
Challenges, especially we saw that in the Palisades area last night. Some of the higher elevations of the Palisades area had real water pressure issues where they basically ran out of water from the tanks, and when they really needed them, the water wasn't there. They did their best to refill them, but they weren't able to get enough water on there. They blamed that, a lot of that, on the fact that they didn't have any air support last night. Tonight there is air support, but still that is going to be something that the city, county officials are going to have to look at in terms of an after-action report and see if there are ways to prevent that sort of situation from happening again. Clearly it looks like we got a nice stream of water here from firefighters who are trying to put limit the damage on this one as we look at this fire that's burning right now in the San Fernando Valley.
The word that was escaping me, hydrant, the fire hydrant issues that we were dealing with earlier. So yes, it's good to see the water there. And to the top of your screen, Sunswept Drive, that is the noted location per LAFD where this is actually burning. According to them, this is the 3600 block of North Sunswept Drive in the hills of Studio City. So this is a major firefight. No word on if anyone was home at the time. They very well could be. Let's hope that everyone got out safely. We haven't heard about injuries. Obviously, very early, too early to tell. And of course, people wonder about the cause. We wonder about the cause for all of the fires that we've been seeing. And we have no word on that just yet. No, we don't know what started that fire. You can see, I don't know if that's the same house there or not, but that is also burning right now. A really, really sizable property that we're looking at right here. Some of these homes in Studio City are celebrity homes. You know, obviously you have to be pretty affluent to be in a 4-story home that looks like that. So we don't know the background of whoever the homeowner is here. We might get more information on that in the days ahead. As we all have a little bit of brain farts every once in a while, we're going on hour
10 or 11 straight without a break, and we're doing the best we can as we all get through this together tonight, and we appreciate your patience with us as we are trying to stick with this, and we know everybody's a little tired at this point, but there is also a lot of concern, which is why so many people are tuned into this coverage, desperate to get information about their houses and get information about what's going to happen next, because it seems like every so often there is something next. This fire in Studio City we weren't predicting tonight. The fire in Hollywood Hills area, not something we were predicting tonight. And so until we are completely out of the woods from this Santa Ana wind event, you know, we run the risk of yet more fires starting, and really could start anywhere. And we've been lucky so far, and I'm not meaning to say this to jinx it. I mean, all the fires so far have been contained to LA County. We also have our surrounding areas, Riverside County, San Bernardino County, that have had really extraordinary winds and have not had major fires. We've seen some fire. Ooh, here we go. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Oof.
That is absolutely devastating to watch live on the air. That 4-story home literally crumbling on the hillside that it once stood.
Heartbreaking, and you think of what is presumably a family's memories and all of their stuff in there, and all of it is totally gone, and how heartbreaking that must be for them to watch something like that as well.
Let's just pray that everyone got out safely in that home and this other home that appears to be a separate home adjacent to it, and more of that structure is now crumbling. It's only a matter of time until what's left standing on that far right side, those 3 or 4 levels will collapse as well.
Man, okay,
Yeah.
so I mean, as we watch this, here's what we know right now in terms of where everything is, because it's been confusing and we get a little confused sometimes too. So there's this burning in Studio City. There is the Sunset Fire, which is burning near Runyon Canyon. There's the Palisades Fire, which is burning in Pacific Palisades and Malibu. There's the Eaton Fire, which is burning in Altadena and Pasadena area. And then there is the fire burning in Sylmar as well. So those, and then we've seen some smaller fires burning in different neighborhoods as well throughout the day that aren't quite as serious in terms of threats. But this thing's a pretty massive fireball, especially when you look at it at night.
Yeah, and it seems to, despite the water, the line of water there that we've seen, which is good to see, it's not necessarily dampening those flames. We do have Matthew Seedorf. He is on his way to this fire. He was over the hill in the Hollywood Hills for the Sunset Fire earlier. He was at the Palisades Fire, and now he is making his way, he and his photographer making their way to this area. So as soon as he arrives here, we will be able to bring you a live report from the roads below.
And you can imagine for our crews, just like everybody else driving, there's lots of road closures because of all of this, lots of increased traffic because of all these different scenes that we're seeing, which makes it challenging to get around. And look, Marla, I think we're going to be near the point where this roof may collapse as well.
Yeah, that's imminent.
Yeah, so let's show you, as we wait for that, let's show you some video from just a short time ago. This is what we watched together, and you just watched that. It's just devastating to see. I mean, a fire is so awe-inspiring when you see it, and then you also think about, you know, the memories and the individuals who are impacted in such a devastating way when we watch that all happen.
It almost seems unbelievable that we've had fire after fire after fire after fire. You know, we thought the Sunset Fire, that was astonishing that that one erupted over the hill, and now it was easy for us to get it confused, because how could you think that another massive fire would erupt like this and on the other side of the hill? And here we are, and look at the plume of smoke as you know, the firefight down below continues. LAFD already strapped so thin.
Right, and this is bad news for our friends in the Studio City neighborhood, but frankly, good news for our friends in the Hollywood Hills, because this means that we still have not seen any structures fully engulfed by the Sunset Fire, which was something that we were really concerned about. So our understanding now is we don't know of any structures lost there. LAFD really doing some terrific work there, but now they're concerned about what we're seeing here in Studio City.
If you are just joining our coverage as we approach 9:30, this is a brand new fire that has erupted in the Studio City Hills. This is a house fire. It was a 4-story residence that has since crumbled, and then also an adjacent home has caught fire. According to LAFD, they're in their defensive mode, and this is on North Sunswept Drive in Studio City. We do have a crew on their way from covering the Sunset Fire in the Hollywood Hills to bring you the latest on the ground here in Studio City.
So when they say defensive mode, what that means is basically we know we're not putting this thing out. We're trying to limit the damage to everything else. We're trying to stop the embers. We're trying to protect the other property nearby because the house itself is going down. Oh, now we saw a water drop right there. That came in. We'll see if that makes a difference. That was impressive to see from Skyfox and get a sense of where we are. This is, you know, Studio City. We're looking right there on the different streets of Ventura Boulevard, Laurel Terrace, and then you see some of the emergency crews staging right there. You know, this is a neighborhood that we have not talked about in the last couple days when we've seen all these fires. They've basically been spared. Let's hope that they are able to contain this thing. And that is where having those, whoa, okay, we just saw a power pole sort of explode right there. You see that sparking? That's not a good, that's a concerning sight for everybody in the neighborhood. Very dangerous to be around there. That's probably going to mean a loss of power for people in that neighborhood too. So, you know, having the water from the air could be really helpful in preventing this fire from being something that, say, takes out, you know, 100 homes, which is what we were seeing in Pacific Palisades, where something like that starts and the winds were so intense and there was no water to put it on it from the air, and then all of a sudden 1,000 homes are gone. Let's hope that we're able to prevent that. But you do see, looks like these embers are flying in different directions and creating little spot fires in different directions, and that's certainly a scary sight for people in this neighborhood.
Skyfox bringing you these live pictures of a house fire, a couple of them now in the Studio City Hills, and it's really unbelievable that, you know, we've gotten to this point. You know, LAFD doing what they can given the strapped resources. They're putting out information on their social media channels. We check there, but we appreciate you leaning on us. Of course, if you're in this neighborhood and you know anything about this, if you have heard from authorities, please let us know here at Fox LA. We're happy to have your voice join us as well, because we're trying to cover this the best we can while our reporter gets there on the ground. It looks like now this has taken over the hillside, the vegetation.
Yeah, look at all that vegetation. I mean, it looks like this is just ripe fuel that is ready to burn, and now we see this thing sort of exploding. We haven't seen a water drop on this, and so now this is, you know, as we look near Goodland Avenue, concern as this thing is really starting to take off. Let's talk about the winds. Adam Kruger has been tracking that. We haven't talked much about Studio City. Let's talk about their weather.
Yeah, and one thing before we even get to any maps or graphics or anything, if we just hold this shot, I mean, you see that the smoke is mostly going up. I mean, yes, there's a breeze there, but this is not the situation weather-wise that we saw last night or early this morning, where the smoke was going sideways and the flames were going sideways. Not quite that scenario. So that's a little bit better just in terms of the weather conditions. We have seen a reduction of the winds for sure tonight. We expect the winds to actually get even a little bit lighter tonight before they pick up once again going into tomorrow. And when I say pick up, they won't get extreme like what we had in the the last 12, 24 hours, but they will increase a little bit more. But, you know, and you mentioned it, it's just there is so much happening right now in so many spots. It is overwhelming for sure just to keep track of, let alone watch and feel for these people that are going through this and feel for the crews that are doing what they can to mitigate what's going on out there. But just visually, you can see that the wind, you can tell from the flames and the smoke, not nearly as severe as what we had in the last 24 hours. I do have pulled up in the control room, and I don't know if we can, yeah, perfect. All right, so this is what we're looking at now. I wanted to get this up because this is from NOAA. And I can show a little more detail on this than what I have available on our weather system here. And what we're looking at is current wind gusts. I know the numbers are on the small side, but you get the idea. Maybe if you get a little closer to your TV, you can see all of them. But we've got gusts that are mostly you know, you see a lot of single digits here. You get up into some of the foothills and the mountains and the valleys. Obviously, there are some higher wind gusts right now, 20, 30 miles per hour. These are kind of color-coded, which is nice, too. So if you see some orange numbers, that's, you know, 50 in the 50s. And so now as we switch to this is the, over the last 24 hours, the highest gusts that were measured in some spots. You'll notice there are some 90s on there. There are some, I see a 94. I see a few 90s. I see some 80s. And so this was the extreme, unprecedented type of wind gusts we had in the last 24 hours that, you know, you take the fires out of this, and even this alone, just the winds would be incredible. And then, of course, you add the fires on top. We have all the devastation going on right now. So, again, what you're seeing here is various weather stations, the peak wind gusts they received or got in the last 24 hours. And notice especially in some of the higher elevations, 70s, 80s, even over 90 miles per hour. If we switch back to the first tab, though, again, that's going to show you the current wind gusts. The first image we had up here. And if we get to that on the computer, you'll see that, again, a lot of these numbers, you just cut them in half or even less than half, and that's what we're seeing right now. So that's the improvement we were looking forward to at the end of the day today, and continuing into tonight, these numbers will keep going down. But again, you see just these spots, especially in the mountains, 30, 40, 50 miles per hour still ongoing. And then you have the difference across, let's just say the LA basin. Look at that, 6, 8, 2, 1. I mean, these are some low numbers in many spots as well. So that's a little bit of good news to see right there. Now, if we can switch to what we would call Weather 1, the standard weather system here, and show you, you know, what our forecast is. I'll show you what the winds are looking like as we continue into the night here. First, though, just on our headlines, I do want to say we have a red flag warning that's still ongoing all the way through Friday. It is no longer a PDS, which is particularly dangerous situation. We've talked about that many times. That was the red flag warning we had before. Those are issued for the most extreme circumstances. It was the third time one of those was issued this season, but only the fourth time since 2020. They're relatively rare, just not the case this season. Anyway, now we switch from that to a regular red flag warning. Still means it's breezy, still means it's going to be very dry, still means weather conditions are favorable for fires to spread. But the winds will relax as we go through the overnight here, and then the next wind peak, kind of uptick in the winds, will start to happen midday Thursday, and that lasts into Friday morning. And that's the part of the forecast I'm going to show you here in a moment. We do have the high wind warning continuing for all these areas in this yellowish color until 10 o'clock tonight, and then the high wind warning expires. We may see some wind advisories, which is like one classification below that. Those may continue into tomorrow or maybe even Friday. But this is issued as winds may get as high as 60, and again, that's mostly going to be some of the higher elevations. And again, that ends at 10 o'clock tonight. Then we have the red flag warning, like I said, and this is a regular red flag warning, continues through Friday. And one thing that changed just about an hour or two ago is that a good portion of the LA basin and the city of Los Angeles was included back into this red flag warning. The National Weather Service had this area carved out. They've included it now. And so all areas in this magenta color, which is basically everywhere except right along the coastline from LA down to Orange County, all these areas on a red flag warning through the day on Friday. Officially ends at 6 p.m. on Friday. Now let's look at those crucial forecast wind gusts. And as we show you going through the night here, I'll pause it at 1 o'clock in the morning. This is good to see. Yes, it's still going to be breezy, especially up in the mountains and the higher elevations, but a lot of the area will see much lower wind speeds. We see things then ramp back up. So this is that next uptick I was talking about as winds begin to peak once again as we go through late tomorrow morning into midday tomorrow. So this is now paused at noon, and you see we're back to some wind gusts that'll be over 35. Anywhere you see the purple color is 35 or above. And then the numbers here, you see some 50s, you see 60 miles per hour. This is going to continue to make the efforts difficult in terms of trying to knock down and contain the multiple fires that we have burning right now. Thursday afternoon, still gusty. Again, not extreme, but it's still breezy, still pretty windy. We still have dry air. And then as we go into Friday morning, there are some areas that are still windy. We go into Friday late day, and then we are pretty much wrapping up our Santa Ana wind event. And again, it's 6 p.m. Friday, the cutoff for when the red flag warnings end. Another thing I want to show you is tracking the humidity, which is, you know, of all the factors that are involved in fire weather conditions, wind and humidity are most important. Of course, very dry vegetation helps fires grow as well. And we know that the vegetation is extremely dry, as it's been relatively rain-free, or virtually rain-free, I should say, for about 8 months. Yes, there's been a little here and there, but hardly anything. All right, so relative humidity been very low today. Now you'll notice much higher humidity closer to the coast. We actually see a little recovery in the humidities there, and that's why I believe the National Weather Service has just carved out that little area not included in the red flag warning. Everywhere else, though, the humidity is a factor for sure. Down below 20%, down below 10% in some spots tomorrow afternoon. And even continuing into Friday, again, near the coast and around the LA Basin, it's getting more humid, which is good, but we still see some pretty dry air there on Friday morning, and especially still on Friday afternoon. So that's another big problem as to why the fire weather conditions continue through Friday. It's not all about the wind. It's also the fact that the air will be really dry. And then we'll end right here looking at air quality. And we've seen some of the sensors, especially near the Eaton Fire, and that's no surprise. We've seen these get into the bad range or unhealthy range at times today. You see a couple of those red dots right there, and that would indicate that there's a couple of sensors measuring unhealthy air right now. We don't have a sensor, you know, on every single neighborhood block, but you can imagine just in the vicinity of some of these fires, for example, the Palisades Fire, if you're around that smoke, you're probably seeing some at least somewhat unhealthy air near you. And I would imagine for many days, as these fires burn to some capacity, we'll probably see air quality issues. That'll be kind of more of a long-term thing. But again, to just reiterate, one of the most important things here with the winds, they're dying down tonight. That's good. Air's still going to be very dry, though. And then the winds start coming back up tomorrow midday through Friday morning. Not extreme like what we've had. We're past the worst of the winds, but still the winds will be whipping up, and that's going to continue to make things a little bit tricky with these fires. There's still going to be favorable weather conditions for the fires to continue to spread. Guys, we'll head back to you.
I've got a question for you, Adam.
Yeah.
So because of that, in terms of the wind direction, say let's talk about the Palisades Fire, which is still the biggest fire and the most destructive one, and seems to be burning the most tonight. What direction is that going to be going? If the winds are changing, is that going to be moving maybe towards Calabasas, or is that still going towards the ocean?
Yes, still towards the ocean. You know. I mean, that's going to be the broad wind direction, and I say broad on purpose because there are these small-scale little microclimate situations happening where the winds kind of curl at times, and well, I'll talk more about that in a second, but let's talk about the broad wind direction. It's going to continue to be what it has been. I just want to get the map to kind of pause at a spot that I like here, but it's going to show here that, yes, the wind direction, like it's been all along here, generally from the north-northeast to the south-southwest, which is just this motion towards the ocean. And so, yeah, you mentioned Calabasas, for example, or areas north of the Palisades Fire. I think it's going to be really difficult for the fire to grow. Obviously, if you have burning vegetation right next to other dry vegetation, it might just kind of naturally creep that way, or especially if it's an uphill slope, the fire might creep that direction. But as far as the wind-driven part of the fires, everything should still continue to get pushed towards the ocean, from the north-northeast to the south-southwest. So the Palisades Fire, you know, another community watching very closely there is Brentwood to Santa Monica. That's another situation where we saw the fire line basically just kind of creep towards the Santa Monica area, but not from the wind, more so just, you know, nearby embers and the fact that the vegetation is just starting to eat away at the next vegetation next to it. And so it has crept a little bit that way, and that's part of the reason why a little more of Santa Monica was included in the evacuation for today. That happened this afternoon. But the heart of the fire just spreading in the same direction it's been going towards the ocean. And then the last thing I'll say, just as far as the wind direction, because that's the broad wind direction, right? But then there are these small scale things that happen for various reasons. One is the topography, and I mentioned this a couple hours ago, I believe, but you think about, you're watching a football game and you see the winds kind of swirling around in these stadiums sometimes. It's because, there's like a topography essentially to the football stadium. Winds come over the stands or they hit other things and they turn direction a little bit. So that can happen here in Southern California. It does happen here in Southern California with all the different topography in the mountains and the valleys and the canyons. Winds generally go in the same direction but can interact with the topography, curl around a little bit in small areas. And then you add on top of that the fact that the fire itself will cause the winds to change directions a little bit, and that's because you think fire is very hot air that causes air to rise, and so that just kind of like mixes things up a little bit more. If you think about a vertical column of air, yes, winds are going in one direction, but you add the lifting air from the heat of the fire, and it just adds an extra motion to everything. And so it's kind of a long way of saying, yes, the winds can turn direction at times, but I think the broad wind direction is going to be the same, just blowing down towards the coast.
I feel like we just went through a Bill Nye the Science Guy lecture or something. We just got to class. Thank you so much. But real bottom line, last question, real bottom line. The winds going back to offshore, going the other direction, when does that happen? Maybe this weekend?
Yes, so Friday, I think there's going to be, the winds are coming more from the northwest on Friday, and they won't be as strong. So that's not just a straight onshore wind, but the more of the onshore wind starts to happen this weekend. And not to get too far ahead, but and I mentioned this earlier, Monday of next week, Monday or Tuesday of next week, looks like it could be some type of Santa Ana wind event kicking up again. I would call it maybe moderate to strong the way it looks right now, which would be less severe than what we have this week. But we're in that season, it seems, and it'll be another situation we'll have to think about and watch for next week. I don't want to get too far ahead, though, because obviously, there's so much going on just right now and today. But that'll be something we'll be watching in the future.
All right, Adam, we thank you so much. Yep. This is the Studio City house fire that has turned into more than one house fire. That's what we are looking at live from Skyfox, and the emergency response is fast. We are waiting for Matthew Seedorf to arrive on scene. This home was a 4-story home. It collapsed live on our air. Looks like we lost the signal just for a moment, but we do want to get back to the Palisades fire. Chelsea Edwards, she picks up our coverage there, and the winds there, completely different story. Chelsea.
I can certainly attest to everything that Adam was saying. I mean, this is a steady wind flow directly to the south. So much so, I want to show you, there's now a firefighting presence. They kind of just leapfrogged down to the south of where we're standing here at this church. And that just happened in the last 20 minutes or so. So they're obviously concerned about the embers flying in that direction. And it is just a powerful, forceful wind that's just been blowing south for a while now. And you can see this church just crumbling here. We've got this flashlight to show you. We couldn't see this before because there was a structure in front, but you can see what looks like a cathedral of some sort. Look, if we can pan to the right, you see these beautiful stone arches. This was a very large church. It's the Community United Methodist Church of the Pacific Palisades. And I mean, look at the destruction here. We just heard what sounded like a very large concrete wall collapsing. It sounded like a big boom. Didn't sound like an explosion like some of the gas canisters that we've been hearing explode for the last 24 hours. This was different. This was like a wall falling down. And then over here, we just saw the last beam, the last standing beam, that just collapsed a couple of minutes ago. So when we got here, this was, I mean, it looked like a structure. It looked like there was something here, and now it's just gone. This fire is just left to kind of just burn itself out. There's nothing left to do, especially with these winds just kicking it up. And I want to show you again, just kind of setting the scene for what we're talking about here. You look over here, we've got this sign, join us for the Christmas season. A couple of days ago, this was a place of worship. This was a place of joy. They were celebrating the holiday season here. And now there's absolutely nothing left. And we're just seeing scene after scene after scene like this here in the Pacific Palisades. We came into the Pacific Palisades from the east. So we were driving toward the west on Sunset Boulevard. And it's apocalyptic. I mean, there's absolutely no service. There's no power in this area. And so the only way that you can see anything is through the lights on your car. And then also just these burning plots, the buildings that are burning all over the place in every single neighborhood. neighborhood as you drive along Sunset Boulevard. It's just an eerie, weird kind of place to be. I also want to say that we've been talking about this. The only reason that we are allowed, that we have been able to bring these live shots to you, is because we just got Starlink. So Starlink has allowed us to be able to do these live shots from this location because, again, there's absolutely no cell service. There's no connectivity of any kind anywhere in this fire zone in the Pacific Palisades. Elon Musk actually just retweeted a clip on X, reposted a clip that was up there of one of our live shots saying that, and he actually made an announcement along with it. He said SpaceX is now going to be providing free Starlink terminals to the affected LA areas tomorrow morning here in Los Angeles. So that's a brand new announcement from Elon Musk based off of our reporting here, and there's certainly a need. I mean, you drive around, nobody here has any kind of service, and unless you have Starlink, there's really no other way to get it here. There's no power as well, so there's no lighting. So these firefighters are really up against it. You know, they're just kind of, they've got what they've got, and that's it. So they're working as hard as they can. Again, it looks like they've leapfrogged where we're standing, anticipating these winds going in that southerly direction. I'm wondering if they're worried that some of these embers are going to be carrying to other buildings down south, and that's why they've staged there, but they weren't there before. So that is new, and that is since these winds really picked up heading toward the south. So just devastating destruction all over the place driving through the Pacific Palisades. I think the numbers are going to skyrocket when we really get a clear picture of how many structures were destroyed here. We're on Via de la Paz. Up there is the village in the Pacific Palisades. So many storefronts, so many buildings just gone, obliterated there. There are entire neighborhoods here in the Pacific Palisades where there's just nothing left. It's hard to tell if there was anything even there in the first place. The only reason that you can make out that something was there is that there are just piles of debris like what we're seeing here, just smoldering piles of debris, but you have no idea what it is. You don't know if it was a house or a business, what kind of structure it was. It's just devastating and just incredible to watch. We've been watching this church burn beam by beam, just crumble. These walls are collapsing. It's just, I just have no words for this. It's just like something out of a movie.
Yeah, and Chelsea, I didn't know if you had known that about Elon Musk. I was going to bring that up with you. I just showed that to Marla.
Yes, you've gone viral.
We appreciate that he's watching, and his 211 million followers on X are now watching Chelsea Edwards' report as well. But let's talk about what Starlink is. Basically, that's satellites that Elon Musk has launched up, you know, that allow for internet connectivity. A lot of people have described this whole thing as being like a war zone. He literally sent Starlink into the war zone of Ukraine. It's the way that a lot of people there were able to get their internet connectivity. And the fact that Starlink is going to be up around Los Angeles tomorrow is a big deal. That's really going to be helpful to a lot of people.
Well, it's a big deal for our reporting as well. You know, I was talking to some other news crews who were in this area a little bit earlier. What they were up against was no cell service, so they had to shoot pieces of video here. Then they're driving to locations where they can get service, and they're having to do these live shots from there. So, you know, they're not able to be in constant contact with anybody with their desk, so they're not able to report immediately what's happening. With this technology, we can now be anywhere, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether or not you've got cell service. We can report from inside the actual disaster zone, which is a game changer. I mean, it's extraordinary how different that is going to make our reporting and our, you know, ability to be able to, you know, give information to our viewers and to the public. We weren't able to do that before. You know, you had to gather at one place, drive to a different location, and then miss whatever was happening in the area that you were in before. So this is going to be extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, Elon Musk retweeting you 45 minutes ago, and he writes, SpaceX will provide free Starlink terminals to affected areas in LA tomorrow morning. You have already established connection thanks to Starlink, so it is great news. It's a great service. What we're trying to do here is a public service, and this helps us be able to bring that information, vital life or death information. So, Chelsea, great reporting on your behalf as always. Thank you so much. We will let you take a break, gather some more news, and we'll check back in with you soon. Susan Hirasuna, she is there as well, covering the Palisades fire. And where are you now, Susan?
Okay, Marla, right now, as this gust of wind blows up here, we are on PCH in Malibu near, I believe it's Rambla Vista. So that's Rambla Vista there. And just a few seconds ago, there was a fire unit spraying a lot of water because you see that there are all these, what they call cat eyes, all the areas that are smoldering. It's too dark for me to tell what was there, whether that's just brush, but I can tell you across the street there's a lot of devastation, a lot of burned out down homes. And in fact, since we were here, there was a fire unit that was spraying water on the buildings as they were smoldering. They finished up and moved farther south down PCH, but it's been an interesting time period. If you have some the video that I sent in, which isn't far from where we are now, if we can run that, I believe Anthony, our writer, was going to put it together. And then before we get to that video, if you don't have it as yet, so this is a building right across the street from the ocean. It is near an area, I don't think this is it, I can't remember what business this is, but behind me was Julia Cantu. It's a skincare place. I think this was a hair salon. I was just checking on the map to figure it out. Okay, now I want to show you this video because it's so weird to have an incredible sunset over such terrible devastation. And this is a swath of PCH where it was just building after building, all of them homes, not, you know, primary homes, but still building after building after building just burned to the ground. And it was unbelievable to see. I mentioned the fact that I went to check on a friend's home and I couldn't even figure out where the address was. There was nothing that was recognizable. It was so terribly sad. And I happened to know that the people next to his house, they had just done like a remodel about a year prior. And then farther south, there's a celebrity home, and that's gone too. So meantime, if you come back live to us, it's just, I just can't, I'm sorry. In a lot of ways, I have no words to describe the devastation and where you can go, you know, for like probably a quarter of a mile, and it's nothing but homes that are destroyed. Then there might be one that's still standing, and then a big building that might still be standing. I don't know if you do know, Marla and Alex, do you know that building? It's a commercial building, and it has a huge like mural on the north side of it. It's a white building, and that building is still standing, but it's then a little farther north. That's where my friend had a house, and it's gone. So we are seeing a lot of fire units come and go on PCH, not a lot of personal cars, so it gives me the sense that the people that needed to evacuate from this area were already gone. As I told you a few minutes ago, that Corbin Beach area was supposed to evacuate, and we just didn't see any movement. It was as if other people, or the people that live in that area, thought, no, I'm going to get out. I was surprised to find that Malibu Town Center is still, it still has power. So I was surprised about that. And, you know, obviously nothing is open, but it does still have power. So right now we're dealing with weather conditions where there's a lot of smoke being kicked up right now and a lot of wind. But I know, I was out of state yesterday, but I know that it's nothing compared to the way it was yesterday, last night. And yeah, we're just keeping an eye on everything going on here. We're going to keep going south. And it is thanks to the fact that we have a Starlink as well. And it's only because of that we're able to go live with you and get some communication between us here, you know, out in the field and you back at the station. So I'll send it back to you guys.
When you say you have a Starlink, is that like a Wi-Fi box, or what does that mean exactly?
Do you want to see it?
Yeah.
I'll show it to you. Come on, Jaden. So Jaden is a photographer from KTVU Oakland, and over in the corner, wave Tom, is Tom Vakar, very famous Tom Vakar, who's been in the business a long time.
He's on our
and so the two of them drove down together. So this is basically the unit that they deal with. It takes a little while for it to like link up, But then once you do, then you can do this, which is, you know, go live. He does have to sort of like position it correctly in order to get the signal proper. And then once, you know, I like hooked my phones up to it. He has his phones hooked up to it.
Wirelessly,
and,
like a Wi-Fi
so that's
thing?
how, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And is that ours or KTVU? And how did we get that?
No, it's KTVU.
Okay.
It's KTVU, sorry, yeah. You mean you want me to take it, Marla?
Yeah.
Exactly.
The Bay Area station gets all the good tech. That's what they do up there. All right.
So.
Yeah. Susan Hirasuna, thank you, and say hi to Tom Vakar for us, and our thanks to Elon Musk for making this report possible. I appreciate it. We'll check back in with you in the 10 o'clock hour. Okay. We're back now in Studio City, I believe. That's where Skyfox is right now. And it looks like fire crews have made some progress on this massive house fire.
We are getting word from LAFD, though, that residents near Laurel Canyon Boulevard and Mulholland Drive, as well as Coldwater Canyon Avenue and Ventura Boulevard in Studio City, you are advised to prepare for a potential evacuation. This is from LAFD. So there are some warnings that are going out in terms of evacuations because of these structure fires in the Studio City hills. We'll keep a watch on that and let you know if that turns into a bona fide evacuation order. But obviously, if you live in this area, you know what's happening outside your door, and it's a very frightening feeling. And let's hope that they, you know, make quick work of it. They have made significant progress since we last checked, it looks like.
Yeah, so we've seen good progress on that. Somebody just messaged me asking for an update on the Sunset Fire, and I will say we still do not have any reports of any structures burned in that, which is quite something. That Sunset Fire is now at 43 acres burned, but thankfully not the acres that include homes or businesses, and we don't have any reports of any injuries on that one. Obviously, we do have some property destruction here. The goal is to limit it to these homes in this immediate area and not see it take over other parts of Studio City, Ventura Boulevard, and right now it seems like crews are doing a good job of containing the damage.
We are still waiting for Matthew Seedorf, who was covering the Sunset Fire in the Hollywood Hills, to arrive on the ground below this one to be able to bring you a live report from the scene. You know, we're doing the best we can in touch with LAFD to bring you the latest information. But yes, the flames, those massive flames, they've been put out, thank goodness, and it's still good to see that continuous water line just on the flames from several directions here. In fact, 1, 2, 3, at least 3 hoses are on this at this point in time. So, and this is a la, you know, the Hollywood Hills in terms of how hard it is to get to some of these homes and those narrow, winding streets. So it's a similar situation, a similar layout as we've seen on the other side of the hill for the Sunset Fire in Hollywood. You know, those mandatory evacuations still remain in place. A lot of the iconic places you think about when you think of Hollywood, Capitol Records, TCL, Chinese Theater, the Hollywood Walk of Fame, those areas remain under mandatory evacuation. So we know that traffic is gridlocked in the area. LAPD, LASD, they're all there on the scene trying to make sure that traffic flows okay. But again, that's on the other side of the hill. And now that I've talked this long, it looks like, you know, we just have most of those flames out, which is wonderful.
Wonderful. And we are seeing much more efficient and effective firefights tonight with much less in terms of wind, but we are not totally out of the woods yet. We are still in the midst of a regular Santa Ana wind event, not an extreme Santa Ana wind event. So a reminder, if you live in those areas that are fire prone, even though it feels like we're starting to make progress and get out of the woods, it is still a good idea to have your bags packed and your evacuation plan ready, because as we've seen, these fires can break out real fast, and then all of a sudden they're burning out of control. We've seen that, you know, almost by the hour in the last few days. So it is still important to be prepared for that possibility, which is not an insignificant possibility, that we're going to have more fires potentially in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, so again, we're covering this fire for you. This is the newest one, and that's the one that seems to have the most progress to report, thank goodness. Over the hill, the Sunset Fire in the Hollywood Hills. Of course, the Palisades Fire is what kicked off our coverage yesterday at 10:30 a.m. That fire is holding steady. We haven't had updated numbers, but at last check, almost 16,000 acres. In the Sylmar area, that Hurst Fire, 10% contained, by the way. That's a new number we got in. About 855 acres burned there in Sylmar. And then, of course, the Eaton Fire in Altadena. That is also where we've seen lives lost. Unfortunately, 5 people killed there as, you know, those flames ravaged those areas in Altadena and Pasadena.
So thanks for everybody who's been tuning into this special primetime coverage. We have been preempting our usual Fox primetime in order to give you this special live breaking news coverage. But as many of you know, every night at 10 o'clock, we begin the Fox 11 News at 10 o'clock. And every night at 10 o'clock, we start with an update on everything that we know, the most important breaking news stories for the evening. So we thank you that you're with us tonight. And now let's officially begin together the Fox 11 News at 10.
It was kind of scary running around the homes and banging on people's doors in the middle of the night, just saying, hey, leave the homes.
They were packing up, just putting all their valuables in it and taking off.
Last night I was up till about 3. It's absolutely scary.
Steve's pet store, it's gone. Foxes, gone.
We've seen a lot of businesses on fire. I've lived in LA since 2010. I've never seen a fire like this before.
This area is a total loss.
There's no water north of Woodbury.
The fire has grown.
Be prepared, have your go bag, and immediately evacuate.
Good evening. Welcome to a special edition of the Fox 11 News at 10 o'clock tonight. I'm Alex Michelson.
Thank you so much for being with us. I'm Marla Tejas here for Christine Devine. Of course, we're covering several massive fires burning in the LA area right now. The Palisades Fire in the Pacific Palisades, the Eaton Fire, as mentioned, right above Altadena, the Hurst Fire in the Sylmar area. We also have the Sunset Fire in the Hollywood Hills. And then now, of course, the Studio City house fires that we've been watching. 3 smaller fires also burning. That's the Lydia Fire. That one scorched about 100 acres along Soledad Canyon Road near Acton. The Woodley Fire in the Sepulveda Basin wildlife area. And the Olivas Fire in south of Ventura near the Olivas Links Golf Course. Fire crews are working to contain these smaller blazes as conditions there remain dry.
The biggest fire at all, though, is the Palisades Fire, which has burned more than 15,000 acres. More than 1,000 structures have been destroyed, and that number could go up. It is still at 0% containment. We have seen more structures burning as we speak. Tens of thousands of people remain under mandatory evacuation orders. More than 13,000 structures are still threatened.
Now let's turn our attention to the Eaton Fire. That one turned deadly. 5 people have died. The circumstances around their deaths are not yet known. Roughly 100 structures have been destroyed, though that number is likely much higher on this Wednesday night. And it has exploded in size. It tops almost 11,000 acres with 0% containment. An estimated 100,000 people are under mandatory evacuation orders.
There's the Hurst Fire, which is burning in Sylmar. It has scorched more than 800 acres, forced evacuations, and I think we do have some new numbers here, as Marla just mentioned. It is now at 13% containment, so some progress there on the Hurst Fire. We are looking right now at this house fire, though, in Studio City, and we all watched this live together in the last hour. Look at that home collapsing in front of our eyes, a 4-story home burning. Not clear the cause of what started that. It looked like some nearby buildings also burning tonight. The work is on to try to contain this to just these few properties there, and we want to take you live right now from Studio City. And let's listen. This is a resident who lost their home. This is the first time we've heard this new sound at 10.
Well, we were sitting in our house watching television and
heard what seemed to be gunshots. Of course, we were watching the news and all the fires. Again, heard what seemed to be gunshots. and looked outside, saw our next door neighbor's fire coming out of their home. Took a second and went back out again. He went to grab some things, and I said, our house is on fire. And
So you came in, you said, the house is on fire, the house is on fire.
And which house is yours?
My house is the second house. The first house is the one right there, and the second house is the one that is burning right next to that one.
literally grabbed our phones, the computer, and our dogs, and ran out.
Oh my goodness, I can just feel her heartache there. I'm so sorry. So yes, their home, it looks like it was that one that we were just showing. The other one that we saw collapse live on our air was that 4-story home. This is obviously new video that we got into our newsroom of the crews on the scene responding to these house fires in Studio City. We last look, the flames were nearly out, and LAFD has declared it a knockdown. This is live from Skyfox, just panning over, and you could see it was a black zone there, meaning you didn't see any of the flames as it relates to those structure fires. But then you see all these blackouts here. These are power outages, and I know we've heard from so many of you saying, I don't have power, whether you are in the valley, whether you are in the Hollywood Hills. So widespread outages tonight across the Southland.
And as we were watching that Studio City firefight within the last hour, we saw power poles sparking, which I suggested at the time might meant that we would see blackouts in the area. So because I got to assume because of this firefight, we see some of these power outages. So although they're able to knock this fire down, although they were able to contain the damage to that street, the after effect of it also is some of these power outages in the area. And you look at this area, Marla, and we know how heavily congested the Studio City area is, and that's a whole lot of people that are without power tonight. And this is another, we were just looking, that was towards the 170 that we were looking at as well, where some of those power outages were happening. So a lot happening in the San Fernando Valley right now that's all breaking tonight, and a lot of people who are in the dark as we speak.
Yeah, it's good to see the dark here, though, without the flames.
Yep.
That's what I mean by that here on the Studio City house fires. Again, those homes appear to be total losses. That for sure the 4-story home that collapsed on our air is, and then the couple just narrating for us as they watched their home go up in flames. Again, we're so sorry for all of those impacted, no matter what fire you're in. It's just absolutely devastating. One of the fires that we're watching, of course, the Eaton Fire in Altadena. That one broke out just over 24 hours ago. Laura Diaz, she is live there, and this is about 10,600 plus acres. And Laura, obviously active flames right behind you.
Yes, what you're looking at is really these gas fires that we see all around the area. We are on Home Park Avenue, and if you can just kind of walk with me, you can see the devastation. Off to the right looks to be a small station wagon. I can't even tell you what the make of the car is exactly. That's how destroyed it is. And then you can look off and see the structure of what used to be somebody's home, the chimney still standing, and then the spot fire off to the right. And then also we can see that the brick fence is still intact, but it is so random what's occurred here that you'll have one house utterly destroyed, and then right next to it one that is still standing. And that's, you know, the randomness, the capriciousness of these flames that are just so hard to determine. We've been watching as the engines have been coming up and down the streets. They've had to decide which houses they could take a hold of and try to save, and those which, quite frankly, it was too late. So as we look around, it looks like a battleground here. You see an engine going by right there on one of the main streets. That's Altadena Drive. But I really find it difficult to put into words just how barren it is here and how lacking in hope it is to see scorched earth, scorched trees, something that used to be somebody's beautiful home containing all of their memories just destroyed right down to the dirt, down to the dust. And it really does hit you right in the heart to think about what this will mean to some family who will try to put their life back together once they're allowed back in to try to assess what the next steps are. Now, earlier this afternoon, I spoke to a woman. She had evacuated overnight. She was happy to come home and still find her home standing today, but she expressed a great deal of empathy for her neighbors who were not so fortunate. Let's listen.
One of my friends, it's a couple with 2 young daughters, and their house was one of the first ones to go over on the corner of Altadena in New York. And just, you know, they're camping out at a Hilton. They've lost everything, and it's just so traumatic for, especially for young people, to go through something like that. The loss and the grieving. I feel it.
Any further requests?
You know, oftentimes people talk about Southern California. It's a huge area. People don't know their neighbors. As somebody who grew up here, I can tell you it's not true, that I think people really have a sense of community and trying to help those around them. And we've certainly sensed that here. When we were speaking to that woman just a little while ago, several hours ago, she talked about the fact that all of the people who live in the area have been in communication. They've been trying to help each other, offer someone a place to stay if they still have a home intact, and really just a sense of community and wanting to be a good neighbor. And I know that we're here still in Altadena, but I must tell you, Alex and Marla, that I know that area of Studio City very well. In fact, I put a bid in on a house there on Sunswept, so I know that street. They have lovely views that look out. They're a little bit remote, and the streets are so narrow that sometimes you have to pull over so that the car can go around you to go the opposite direction. So for the fire department that would have been up in those hills trying to put out that fire, they would have had a very difficult job. And also the steep slope that sends right up the hillside that would have sent that fire burning at a rapid rate, again, would have been quite difficult. And then the area that they're talking about there over off of Coldwater Canyon is eventually where I did live for some 15 years. Same thing. A lot of people in the industry live up in those hills, and they move there for the view. But when you have a fire that's moving at that rapid rate, fueled by these Santa Ana winds, it is a recipe for disaster. But coming back here live to Altadena, again, you can see what people are having to contend with. And I'm sure a lot of people are asking themselves tonight, why wasn't my house saved? When you see one structure completely intact and then another one like this, that literally could be a movie set, just total and utter destruction. Laura Diaz sending it back live to the studio. Alex and Marla.
Yeah, it looks like Universal Studios or something. Laura, thank you for all that perspective. Really interesting context there. We appreciate it.
All right, moving on to the schools. Los Angeles Unified School District, as you know, is the largest in the state. The superintendent, there he is, Alberto Carvalho, earlier with officials. He announced that the district, all schools will be closed tomorrow, obviously because of the widespread fires, wind, and smoke. Students will continue to have access to academic resources online and will be able to get meal services at 8 sites between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. Remote learning may continue on Friday. Officials say they will make that call tomorrow afternoon. It's also important to note, we also heard from Beverly Hills Unified. They are not in the evacuation zone, but nonetheless, they are closing their district schools tomorrow because a lot of their staff are in the impacted areas.
Yeah, maybe if we want to show that video, we were just showing of President Biden is in town today with Kristen Crowley. Another note when it comes to schools, UCLA is going to be basically canceling all undergraduate classes for the next 2 days. Their graduate classes are going to go to remote learning, so they're basically trying to keep people off the campus of the University of California, Los Angeles. Chelsea Edwards is live for us tonight. She continues our coverage of the Palisades Fire when we see a church that is not doing well.
And we were just talking about LAUSD, and you have board member Nick Malvoin with you.
That's correct. He just walked up here. So the church that we've been looking at all night is right across the street from an LAUSD elementary school. And I want to bring Nick in. Nick just happened to be walking by doing some assessments, and we just grabbed you really quickly. What have you observed? I mean, what is the latest here in the Palisades?
Yeah, well, things are moving quickly. When I was here with the superintendent doing site assessments earlier today, just this afternoon, the church behind us was still standing. Pali Elementary, which I'm right adjacent to now, is mostly gone. But in addition to, the announcement that the district made that schools are closed tomorrow, there have been so many rumors going out, and for my constituents, mostly in the Palisades, with Pali Elementary, with Marquez Elementary, and with Pali High, I wanted to be on the ground to make sure I was giving them up-to-date information. And, we are pleased to report that Pali High is about 75-80% intact. Those students are not in school this week. They don't go back until next week because of winter break, and obviously we'll have site assessments and instructional engineers, but for the most part, unlike what people were hearing last night, which is that Pali High may be gone, Pali High is mostly there. Pali Elementary is mostly gone. Marquez Elementary is mostly gone. Canyon Charter Elementary, which I was just at, is mostly there. So I'm just trying to update constituents. There's already so many heartbreaking stories of families and constituents who have lost their homes. Schools are closed tomorrow, to give them some peace of mind, one way or the other. Obviously, this is not the peace of mind I had hoped to say, which is that an elementary school has burned, but better to dispel rumors and make sure that they have accurate information. And we're here also just making sure that folks in the community are evacuated, thanking our first responders, and not only thinking about schools tomorrow and then Friday, but also thinking about a school like Pali Elementary, contingency plans for students in the weeks and months to come.
Yeah, we appreciate you joining us to dispel some of those rumors, because this information, it's hard to get out, with so much going on, and, crews in all these different places, it's hard to tell what has burned and what hasn't. You and I were talking before, it's a high bar to make a decision to close LAUSD schools that affects so many thousands of families. Talk about that. I mean, what went into that decision that was made?
Yeah, so it's an incredibly high bar for me, and not only because students have missed too many days of schools in the last few years, but mostly just because we have a population in LA Unified where many families rely on us for childcare and for meals. But at the time we decided we wanted to make the school closure decision at a time where families had time to plan. And so around 4 o'clock when we were making that decision, we had 6 fires burning, including the Sunset Hollywood Fire, which had just started up in the Hollywood Hills near Runyon Canyon. We had air quality. The Palisades is obviously incredibly hardly hit, and we have a few schools that, as we just discussed, are damaged beyond repair. But we also have hundreds of schools in the East Valley, on the east side, near the Altadena and Pasadena fires, where the air quality was really bad. And so we decided, at least for tomorrow, for Thursday, to make a closure decision, just to keep everyone safe, keep them off the roads, also for emergency vehicles and first responders to get to schools. And then we're reassessing on Friday. But today we only had a few schools closed in the Palisades, and then we had a few hundred closed on the east. It's on air quality, but we know that these are close calls. My bar is very high. I want kids in schools. I want families to have a place to go, but we also want people to be safe. And one thing, and folks should go to laschools.net for more information, but throughout LA Unified tomorrow, we have schools that will be open for food distribution. So for families who are in need of food or maybe emergency supplies, Red Cross shelters, they can go to our website, laschools.net, and we have schools open in every region that are providing food for families who rely on the school district for basic needs.
Which is so important for so many families who are a part of LAUSD. Last one, I want to get you out of the smoke. I know you don't have any goggles on, which is so helpful. What is it like when you're walking around these schools and you're seeing this destruction? These are places where children learn. These are places that are kind of pillars of our community. What is that like for you personally to tour the damaged area?
It's been devastating. I grew up just next door in Brentwood. I played soccer in the Palisades. This is my community. I was driving around with my district director, whose kids went to Pali Elementary, whose kids went to Pali High, and she lost her home. But the thing that's been inspiring, and I know we've been hearing about it, particularly in the Palisades, but throughout LA, is how people are rallying together to support their community, checking in on one another, making sure kids are okay, making sure there's continuity of learning. And schools like Pali Elementary, our public schools are civic cathedrals, but what makes them special is what happens inside those schools and the relationships between kids and their teachers and families. So it's heartbreaking. I'm a kid of the Palisades. I went to Mort's Deli and Jacobo's and played soccer at Pali High, so we're heartbreaking, but seeing the resilience and how our students and our teachers are saying we will rebuild and we will be there together for folks who need places to shelter or places to eat or places to go to school is really inspiring, and I'm just grateful and I'm proud to represent this resilient and amazing community of the Palisades.
Nick, thank you so much for joining us. Please get out of the smoke, get some goggles on. It's so intense.
Stay safe as well, and I hope all our watchers are staying safe and also following those evacuation orders and making sure up-to-date information. We'll be making an announcement by 4 o'clock back tomorrow for schools on Friday, so please stay tuned.
All right, perfect.
Thanks.
Nick, thank you so much. Stay safe. We really appreciate you. Oh, you just heard it. That was such a chance encounter. You know, we've been standing across from this elementary school for the last several hours. The physical outside of it, the facade, is still intact. We didn't even know that that had been destroyed. That is a loss inside Pali Elementary that we are standing right in front of, because the walls are still standing on the outside. That's part of the issue with having no electricity, no lights, no cell service in this area. You really can only see what you're able to physically light up in front of you and what you're able to see from the glows of fires like this behind us. So, you know, we're able to see the outside of that building, but we're not able to see the destruction anywhere around it. We obviously got here in the dark, so I'm sure you're able to see it when you're standing here. We've been watching this church burn bit by bit. This is the Community United Methodist Church, the Pacific Palisades. When we got here, there was an actual structure here in the front gone. We've watched the beams collapse. We heard a wall collapse. Just utterly devastating, and these winds continue to just fly down south. They're all going south. It's all moving south now. Very strong. They've been moving those embers. For a little while, we had a big firefighter presence just south of where we're standing. I assume that was to kind of leapfrog and to get ahead of where these embers are flying. They've now moved on to something else, and this is obviously dying down. There's really not a lot left here to burn. This is just a total loss. Completely gutted this church. Just scenes of utter devastation. And you know, also for these kids that are affected, you know, with LAUSD schools, that is thousands and thousands of families that will not be going to school tomorrow, that will, you know, not have that child care tomorrow. That's a very big announcement, and they really don't take that lightly. So that's, you know, please stay up to date. Keep up with us here at Fox 11. We'll bring you the latest when they make that announcement tomorrow at 4 o'clock about the next day of school. But no school tomorrow for LAUSD. Marlon, Alex.
Yeah, good to see Nick Melvoin, who called into our coverage last night at 1 in the morning, and out there tonight at Chelsea. We've all been putting in long days. Thank you. The State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurman, is urging Californians to come together in support of fire-impacted students, families, educators, and school staff. Tax-deductible contributions can now be made through the supplybank.org disaster relief fund to help provide much-needed assistance. Latest figures show that 335 schools, more than 211,000 students are impacted. For more information, we have a link on our website, foxla.com.
And we are just starting to hear about the number of celebrities who have lost their multi-million-dollar homes in the Palisades Fire. We can tell you that Paris Hilton's Malibu mansion burned to the ground, and so did the homes of actors Billy Crystal, Eugene Levy, John Goodman, Cameron Matheson, Ricky Lake, Anna Faris, and Adam Brody. Many others that we don't even know about yet, most likely as well.
Now to this. Now, due to those extreme wind and fire conditions in and around L.A., tonight's performance of Wicked at the Pantages was canceled. Affected patrons with tickets will receive an automatic refund to the payment method on file.
The beloved Malibu landmark is gone. This one here, Moon Shadows, the iconic oceanfront restaurant opened since 1966, was destroyed in the Palisades Fire.
Yeah, it was known for its dining room, which was perched over the water. The restaurant had been a favorite for decades. Representatives couldn't be reached. They did post on social media confirming that their restaurant is lost. Such a great spot for drinks, and so sad to see her that Moon Shadows is now gone.
So all these homes along this stretch just south of Dukes are gone. Firefighters continue to work here on PCH. Iconic restaurant Moon Shadow is gone. The Rosenthal Winery burned down. Topanga Motel has been burned down.
Jeremy Lee Quinn, who posted this viral video. Employees, patrons sharing memories of that iconic spot, calling it a second home, a place for celebrations. One person said they visited weekly for years. Another recently rang in the new year there. Many are struggling to believe the loss of this cherished gathering place. Moon Shadows was more than a restaurant. It was really a part of Malibu's identity.
All right, we do have Fox 11's Matthew Seedorf. He has arrived on the scene in Studio City where we saw the loss of 2 homes. Matthew, what can you tell us?
Well, Marla, firefighters have really been attacking this thing. We've seen firefighters on the ground. I counted probably at least 20 fire trucks just walking, hiking up here. The terrain is pretty intense, but you can see the firefighters still here, putting water on it really from all angles. Several hoses being sprayed on top of this house and the remaining homes next to it. We also just saw a helicopter come and make a drop, but really an intense scene out here. You can see probably up in the hills these bright flashlights. Firefighters are kind of looking out, looking for any hot spots. You can also see some hot spots, and that's kind of why we likely saw that drop. But really, I mean, after everything that we've seen the last few days, you can imagine how everyone's feeling. This is a very steep terrain with lots of vegetation, and with all these fires that we've been seeing recently, you know, people are very, very worried about any time they see any flames like this. So an intense situation. We understand that a couple of structures are lost, but firefighters still out here and attacking it from all angles and really making sure that this thing doesn't keep spreading. Understand we heard from a homeowner here that lost everything and very emotional, and just kind of imagine kind of what they're going through, just what all these other people have been going through. This is just the third fire that I've been to today, hopping around different parts of the area, and just this is what we've been going through the last couple days, and it's pretty intense. Go ahead and send it back to you.
Matthew, my question to you is about that in your travels. You just came from over the hill, the Sunset Fire in Hollywood Hills. Talk to us about the gridlock. I imagine that it was difficult to get around.
Yeah, maneuvering from Hollywood to here was a mess. A lot of roads closed, police blocking roads. You can't go this way, you have to go that way. And then you finally think you're figuring it out, and then there's another road closed. And then once we got over here in the Studio City, Ventura Boulevard was all backed up. And then once you really got into this neighborhood, there was a hike to get over here because it's gridlocked. People are kind of leaving, but also there's fire trucks blocking it, and we can't park, so you have to walk.
Yeah, not easy to get around, and part of the reason that they're really urging people to stay off the roads if they don't have to tonight.
What about cause? Did you hear anything about a cause?
We're not aware of a cause yet. We can see, we tried speaking with a resident nearby, and they didn't want to talk, but we don't know a cause yet. It doesn't seem like it would be related to the one in Hollywood, though. I mean, the way the wind's blowing, that wouldn't really make sense. But yeah, I mean, going back to that, the firefighters, you can just, the flashlights out here looking for any hot spots. They're definitely taking this seriously, and we did see that helicopter make a drop probably about 5 minutes ago. So can expect more of that probably going into tonight, as this thing's still very hot and caused one home to collapse.
Yeah, and that was live on our air, in fact. Okay, well, we're glad that you made it safely. Matthew Seedorf on the ground for us in Studio City. Thank you so much.
From there, we go to Pacific Palisades, now considered the most destructive fire in the history of L.A. City. Fox 11's Ed Laskos live with more. Ed.
And we've actually moved over. We are in Malibu, just across the line, because it seems like the Palisades Fire doing its dirty work now in Malibu, those flying, burning embers. We are just on the north side, the west side, if you will, of Topanga Canyon, Pacific Coast Highway here, 18,000 block, 1, 2, 3. 6, 7 of these beach cottages, garages burning up in flames the last hour. Fire captain from one of the engines, Engine 45, telling me from LA County, the firefighters have moved in here because we're across the line in Malibu, saying about an hour and a half ago they had a fire on the other side of Topanga, setting up, as we've been seeing certainly last night, a sea of those burning embers, and it lit this section on fire, and they've been dealing with it. And you can see some of those embers burning off, flying off the top of that roof there, as they still have some active flames inside. The embers picking up, but fortunately they're flying to the left of your screen, which means they're flying to the south. They're flying over the ocean, sand, the beaches on the other side of these homes and cottages. But look at the firefighter down at the bottom of that white structure, that two-story structure. That's something we did not see all of yesterday in all of my travels through the Palisades. A charged line, firefighters with water hitting the hot spots, attacking the fire, and that was a big contention in that disaster in the Palisades, and all the devastation up there in the Palisades village. Earlier we had the mayor making her first comments about this devastating fire, and even the top of LA DWP, and they had some explaining to do, as they say, about why the firefighters had no water in that massive firefight 24 hours ago. Listen.
We're still continuing working very closely with Metropolitan Water Department to try to make connections into their system and bring water pressure up so that we can fill the tanks. But in order for me to fill the tanks, I had to ask the fire department to stop fighting the fire. And that's a very tough operational decision to make.
This is a time for vigilance and action, not speculation. This is a time for Angelenos to come together, united, to protect themselves and their families, and also each other.
Now live, Pacific Coast Highway and the firefight here. They're getting an upper hand on all of these cottages burning, but they still have a lot of active flames. But back to the point of what you were just listening to, I saw that last night. It really was a battle, not in the air with that firefight, especially through, well, I would say all of the Palisades particularly, but I was thinking about when we were in the heart of the village itself. No airdrops because of the searing wind, so it really was a firefight with several of the engines hooking up to the hydrants, no water, but a difference here 24 hours later, wind conditions, also more utility crews moving in. They'll be coming in from the left of your screen.
Warming fire only in 140s can't handle.
Here.
Obviously, we're starting to lose that signal there. Some news just into us. Governor Newsom, speaking of water, is going to be sending up to 140 2,500-gallon water tenders to Southern California. So that will help in terms of getting more water in place for the firefight all throughout the region.
You know what we haven't seen, although Governor Newsom did deploy them today, is the National Guard.
Right.
We haven't seen that happen. The questions were yesterday, where's the National Guard, especially at the height of the fire last night when things are absolutely out of control. Not that they're completely under control tonight, but it's a better situation. Nonetheless, Newsom saying today that he has deployed the National Guard, yet we haven't seen it.
Haven't seen them yet. Sometimes it takes a little while for them to deploy, so we'll see what exactly they're going to do. I tried to ask that question to the governor this morning when he was with President Biden, and he didn't answer, so hopefully we'll get more clarity from him in the days ahead. In the meantime, let's go to Christy Fajardo. She's been in Altadena, the Eaton Fire, also a dangerous and deadly fire, and